Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree here on Woeful Wednesdays. I am Nate, and I am joined by Ian. Hi,
As
Ian.
usual.
Yes,
Hello.
Tom may
Hi,
or may
Nate.
not
Hi,
be.
Internet.
Yeah, Tom may or may not be in the chat or in the voice chat here as well.
He's a
Uh,
wild card. He's unpredictable, Tom. You
he's a
never
free
know.
spirit,
He's
that
going to come
one.
and go. Free spirit. You can't chain him down.
Yeah. It's because he's probably busy playing a certain early access game that just dropped this morning.
It's likely. It's likely there's something going on in that
Yeah.
regard, yeah. If he has any
Uh,
taste, if he's a decent human, that's what he's doing, yeah.
mhm. Um, so yeah, we'll see if he can break himself away, shall we say, from that game to come hang out with
Hint,
us
hint,
at some
hint.
point.
I'm not, you know what? I'm not even going to boo that. I'm going to cheer.
Because you would have to agree. Because
I'd
I'm
have to
honestly
agree.
a little surprised you aren't also MIA.
Well,
Just being here talking to myself.
I'm already 5.5 hours in, so I
I
think
was
I've
because say did you have
felt.
the day
And
off so you could do it?
well, I was just gonna say I'm 5.5 hours in, and I do work for a living. I do have a full-time job still, so yeah, I'm squeezing it in where I can, ladies and gents. It actually
Yeah.
came out. What is today? Is today the 15th?
Yes, today is the
Yeah,
15th.
it came out yesterday, so I got a few hours in yesterday too.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incidentally, what we're talking about here, internet,
I was
is
gonna say.
Hyperlight Breaker.
Hyper Light Breaker. Is it an actual direct sequel to Hyper Light Drifter,
It is.
or is it
It
like a
is a
spiritual
prequel.
successor?
It is a
Oh, it's a
prequel.
prequel.
It is.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes. So, I don't know. I don't know how many people who would come to watch this stream or watch the VODs afterwards would know anything about Hyperlight Breaker or Hyperlight Drifter. I assume they do, but
As indie games
um,
go, it's pretty awesome. At least the Drifter was. I almost have it beat. I'm on the last boss, but then I got
oh
distracted and
man,
didn't beat it, and now I'm so
go
rusty I
back and
can't
play it.
actually beat the boss.
I've been playing it on and off all 2024 because it's one of those games that I just drop in on and play every now and then just because it feels so fucking good to play.
Hmm.
Um, so brief background, Hyperlight Drifter, that came out in what, I think 2016-ish, around then. It was.
Yeah, around that time. Also, hi
2015,
Tom.
2016. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom's
yeah.
Hello.
here.
Well, Tom's here. Tom's been playing, so he can talk about this
I
too.
know when
Tom,
the
we were just
Doofy
talking about
Cat
Hyperlight
picture
Breaker.
shows up in my chat screen, I know Tom's here.
The Doofy photo. The Doofy
The
photo
Doofy Cat
needs.
Yeah,
photo
when
of his cat. Yeah, I love that photo. That's if she weren't so majestically black cat on the outside, that would be her inner self. Is the derpy looking
Oof.
photo?
oh
You
yeah,
could, you
Doof.
could just
that
see
is the
her in.
dichotomy of Midna.
Yeah, she is
Um,
all void or all doof.
she's like Vanta Black. She's like that.
Yeah.
No reflectivity at all.
Mm-hmm.
Times, yeah.
Hyperlight Drifter. So Hyperlight Drifter came out around 2015, 2016, and it started as a Kickstarter. It was kind of revolutionary in that way. It was one of the first games that, like, serious games that really got off the ground because of Kickstarter. And it was kind of a sensation, frankly, to the people who really dug that style of game when it came out. And when I played it, it definitely went immediately. Oh my God,
Oh.
good start.
Yeah.
Excellent start.
I
Just
was
a
like, oh,
whiff.
there might not be roof on this side. Oh crap! Too late.
Just, why not just give it a shot? It's a
Yeah.
50-50 chance. Either it's there or not. So I played it and I loved it immediately. It's probably a top 5 all-time game for me. It's fucking astonishingly
Oh,
good.
same.
Yeah, Tom and I are both like Hyperlight Drifter heads. At the time, I think, Tom, you probably played it a little bit before me. I played it when it came out on the Switch in 2017, so I was a little bit late to it actually.
Mm.
But I was lucky because the Switch version actually was like it's where it ran best. And strangely enough, like it was a little
Yeah.
bit janky when it first got released on PC, and then in 2017 when it came out to Switch, it was like that was the refined version, that was the definitive version. So I got kind of lucky. My first experience was on that platform, so that was dope. And we in the Hyperlight Drifter community have been sort of jonesing for more Drifter universe content ever since then. The game is made by Heart Machine. It's a very small developer. They released Solar Ash a couple years ago, maybe 3
Yeah.
years ago now.
I haven't played that
Which
yet.
it's a decent game, but it's like it's not in the Hyperlight Drifter universe. It's sort of completely separate and apart from that, there's also like it's not very combat based. It's very traversal heavy, and the traversal is like really good, but
Right.
it's not. It definitely was not the Drifter sequel that everybody wanted. And just I guess maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, they announced Hyper Light Breaker, which was finally the 3D sort of Drifter universe game that we were all hoping to get. Now, bear in mind, it's actually still not like a direct sequel, or even frankly like a spiritual successor to Drifter, because it's not an open world like linear.
Oh, Breaker isn't?
No. Breaker is a
You said it was a
roguelike.
prequel. Oh.
Yeah, it's a prequel, but it's not the same style of game. So it's not an open world Zelda-like. I mean, it does
Yeah.
have open worlds, but it's not a Zelda-like. It's a roguelite. There's a lot of Breath of the Wild influence in there, but it's a roguelite. It's not like the open world Zelda-like that Drifter was. I will tell you though, I've put in, I guess, about 5.5 hours now. It just got released in early access yesterday. Fuck, man. It is.
Pretty good?
It's early access, and it's got a lot of problems. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
It's too hard, first and foremost, in my opinion. And Tom, you can chime in here on that too. But I think it's too hard from a leveling perspective and from a gear perspective. It's very punishing. If you fail, and you are going to fail a shit ton, you pay a price for it. And so you kind of gotta wear that going in. You gotta expect that to happen. But I don't know that I've played a game. I've only played 5.5 hours, but I will tell you, you know me, I'm like a gameplay hound, and I know like the melee action is like that's where I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe the best feeling melee action traversal game I've ever played, maybe just in the 5.5 hours that I've played. Like the combination of responsiveness and speed and technicality, like the parry feels perfect. The timing, it's demanding.
It's all super
you have
tight
to
and
move.
snappy.
It's super tight.
Hyper reactive and not anticipatory, because you don't like anticipatory.
No, like it's not animation locked like Dark Souls 1 parry is. Like you have to be like if you fail a parry, it's because you fucked up, dog. So
okay.
Yeah, and so that's the good thing about it. Like you do fail a lot, you're gonna die a lot, but I do get the feeling like when you die, it's still your fault. Now, sometimes you're getting overwhelmed by enemies. It can feel like bullet hell. It is there's a lot going on, and it demands a lot of you, but it's definitely something that you can get good at. I see people who are really, really good, like really showing out on this game once it finally gets released, because it's going to be, the combat is fucking intense. And
I'm super curious now.
Yeah, it's real, and it's also beautiful, like as you would expect from Heart Machine. Like that was the other thing about Hyper Light Drifter. It was like revolutionarily beautiful in its pixel art. It was just fantastic in its storytelling. It was very sort of melancholy and beautiful, and the artwork was superb. So I think a lot of people, and the music was done by Disasterpiece. And so that's one thing I noticed. Yeah, that's the thing, Tom. I don't know that there's I noticed in the open world, at least, there just wasn't a lot of music, so I imagine that's early access, and there's more of that to be filled in later on. Yeah, so I would say it's not a whole game. It's got a long way to go. There's a lot of balancing issues with gear and with leveling and shit like that. But from a pure gameplay perspective, I don't know that I've played anything better in that genre. I think it's about as good as you could hope for it to be. So I would say that the game is probably at least a year off from full release, probably more like a year and a half to 2, because it's not like Hades. I mean, it's not like Hades. It's just not very big and fleshed out yet. Like it's pretty narrow in terms of its scope. All the core systems are there, so it still feels pretty good. But Heart Machine famously moves very slowly. This game already in early access has been delayed twice. It was supposed to be released middle of last year, so it's been delayed twice since then. So I would just guess probably a year and a half at least before its full release on all platforms. But
I looked it up on Google, and I thought I saw, I don't know if it's just I mean, Google's already dog shit nowadays, but there was some like timer that came up that was like 8 days from now. So I wasn't sure if it was like an early access like prequel week, or are they doing a whole? I would assume it's longer than a week because 8 days.
No, early access is gonna. Here's the. So they did their first marketing like pre-release reveal of it on. It doesn't look like it. He's like fucking flying.
Yeah.
What is this guy? They did their first full reveal of the early access on a Kind of Funny stream on the 13th, so that was on Monday. And they didn't. It sounds to me like it's going to be in early access for a while. But there is a short-term bundle that's available. So if you don't own Hyperlight Drifter, if you go into Steam and buy Hyperlight Breaker, you get Hyperlight Drifter for free. So that might be what it's talking about, Tom. I don't know, but that's a temporary offer. That's like a launch window offering. So, and that's frankly, guys, if you're listening to this now and it's still open, go get that bundle. And if you don't have Hyperlight Drifter, Hyperlight Drifter is legit one of the greatest games.
Worth it. That's a great game.
It's legit one of the greatest games ever made. So you're getting that game for fucking
free. If you like the old 2D Zelda, but like crank the speed up to like 11.
Yeah,
that is the game.
It's sick.
Sci-fi motif.
I'm loving it because it's feeding that action combat, challenging like Souls-like combat cranked up to 11 kind of thing, and real fucking punishing. I can certainly see why people would not be vibing with it because it is a little bit incomplete. It is a little bit too hard. It is a little bit punishing, and all that. So it's a long way off from final, but I don't care mostly about that. I'll drop into that game and I'll just fight guys like forever for hours on end. So anyway, that's me. What do you think, Tom? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I like it. I definitely agree with pretty much everything that you said. There's definitely a little bit of like in like terms of like the combat like pacing, because that's the first thing I was like kind of concerned about. It's good. I definitely like it. There is like a little bit of I like that. Yeah, like you said, it's not anticipatory. There's a little bit of like I don't know how to describe it. Like with like the climbing and stuff, it's great because like I like the like you can dash at walls and then climb up over things.
You get a double jump right out the goddamn gate.
Yeah, so like the stuff I was mostly concerned about was like I want the dash to be in the game, and I would like, I like the guns, I like the way everything looks. There's a lot of like callbacks to Drifter that I wasn't expecting it to look, to have as many like things just straight up lifted out of it, but I think it works because like it's identifiable, so it's kind of a cool nod for people who've already played it. And the aesthetic is still cool. Like it's timeless to me because I love the way that Hyperlight Drifter looks. So I'm never gonna complain about
like when they do the dash, they get that chromatic aberration, like the different colored like ghosting that it does when they do the dash. That's so sick.
Yeah, the chromatic, the ghosting, like that whole the attitude of the Drifter is always great. Yeah. The combat pacing has like it's a little animation. It's almost like it feels 1-to-1 with like literally Hyperlight Drifter, just 3D. And that's not a
you can't spam.
Like a disappointment, right? Which I like because I think that like just a lot of stuff that is straight up lifted from Drifter into this game works. Like it actually works really well because people. It's kind of a their own take on like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In the sense of like that stuff worked in 2D. They made little tweaks with things like gear and like the hoverboard and stuff, which is great. And I think it's a really smart way to like you can take a swing slightly out of your like wheelhouse if you want to without like totally changing it up. Because I think everyone's biggest fear was like, what if it ends up just being like Fortnite Hyperlight Drifter? That's kind of not. Fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an awesome point. Actually, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right, because Hyperlight Drifter originally, a lot of people like didn't vibe with it because it wasn't spammy. Like you couldn't just smash the button and expect to perform. Like you could not do the chain dash just by smashing the button. Like that was a skill you needed to learn in that game. You had to time it right. There was a rhythm to it. And the same with the attack button. Like you had to time it right to get it right, and like it didn't just come out right away. Like it's demanding. You have to do it deliberately. It's frankly a lot like Souls in that way. Like you press the button, you have to mean it, and you like it's not spammy. So it demands a little bit of you to actually get into it. So I think that's probably why a lot of people didn't vibe with the first game. And you're 100% right, Tom. That same feel is in Hyperlight Breaker, and you can't spam. It is a little bit quicker. I feel like it still feels a little more responsive in certain ways.
Yeah.
But you're 100%. You're totally right. It is. It's still. You have to be really intentional with how you do stuff.
I think the frame rate of the game is a great. I mean, at least I'm running it on like a 3070. I don't have a top-notch CPU. I have like middling specs, and it runs. There is a little bit of stuttering that some reviews complained about. That's the only real negative thing that really stuck out. But that's
one of the things I was really impressed actually by the performance. That's usually the worst thing as part of early access. It's like not optimized at all, and it runs like shit.
Right.
Like, we saw that in No Rest for the Wicked. No Rest for the Wicked kind of ran like shit when it first came out.
So that prompts me, not to interject too much, but that does prompt me, since Ian, you're kind of the early release like connoisseur of gaming right now. What game has you more excited based on the early access?
Fuck me. Okay, I do have an answer for this because I actually
two, I guess any of them, but those are the two I'm most curious about.
Yeah, I do have an answer to this because I've, believe it or not, actually been thinking about that today. My answer is No Rest for the Wicked, and the only reason is because No Rest for the Wicked is a full-on RPG, open world, like, it's not roguelite. That's the only drawback to this game for me, is that it's
more
roguelite.
of a fan of the genre on principle than
the
other one.
If this was an RPG, an open world like Breath of the Wild, or just like a straight 3D conversion of Hyperlight Drifter, this would be it for me. Almost certain. But because it's roguelite, and I don't know if you guys know this, but like, I'm just not big into roguelite as a rule. Like, I don't love being forced to play a certain way, like having to use a weapon that I don't like to use.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I couldn't get into Halo Infinite, because fucking Halo, you have to use the guns that they make available to you, and it's like, I fucking sucks. I hate having to do that because there's always weapons that I hate to use. And so they, like, roguelites often like force you down a certain, like, you don't get a lot of choice in your gameplay style. That I don't have patience for that shit.
Yeah.
So I'll have to, fortunately this game, you get a lot of choice going into each of your runs. So you have more agency over what your loadouts look like before you go. And if you're willing to spend your money to refresh the store before you go in, and you get a lot of money pretty easily, as long as you're willing to spend it, you can refresh the store and find the weapon that you want before you go in. So it's not like a roguelite where you drop into the run and they just give you what they give you. It's, you get to choose your loadout before you go in, and that kind of solves a lot of that problem for me. And it's a roguelite, not a roguelike, so you are leveling up. There is a skill tree, like there's a lot of like permanent upgrades that you do still, so that's helpful too. So anyway, like that, the answer to that question is No Rest for the Wicked. First, because it's a full-on RPG, and second, because strictly speaking, it's more in the like setting that I like. Like I actually do prefer like the fantasy,
like a fantasy more than a sci-fi.
A little bit, yeah. I love both, frankly. But if I had, like, if you're forcing me to choose, I would choose the medieval fantasy.
Yeah.
But like, you know me, like the Midnight is like my favorite band.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I'm gonna vibe with that vapor.
It makes me so happy to hear you say that.
I was thinking about this.
Good about that.
I don't want to go too far afield here, but just I was thinking about the Midnight, probably the most important musical discovery for me in the last 10 years, and like I have
10 years. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, probably. Right.
Cool.
All right, so more on you, Tom. What else were you feeling? Like, how do you feel about like the leveling up and like the gear system, and like, you think that's too hard? Do you think that needs to be modded?
So I mean, like you were saying about like the roguelite stuff, and why that stuff works for me is because like I feel that a similar way in certain games where like I like certain types of like weapons, like the claws and SMGs and things like that. When those show up in other games, if they have their own interpretation, if they don't like feel good, it kind of like, it's disappointing. It kind of sucks. But I'll find something else. I don't mind doing that with roguelikes because I've been playing them basically since I've had like a PC, and
and
indie games kind of came to.
you're super open to different builds too. Like you like playing with all the shit. Like
I think
Elden Ring too. Like you're using everything.
Right. I'm also trying to like change up like different weapons. Like I'm also someone who from like MMO days, I like to make like alt characters just to try other things out. Like I know that I have like very specific preferences.
Right.
But with perfectionism, it's a lot easier to play roguelikes when you're just like, no, I'm in fuck it mode. That means I can use a hammer and I can use a magic and a bunch of shit that I don't normally use.
Yeah.
So I like that about this game, but I also like that similar to like their aesthetic style, like all of the different weapons are that still like that cool neon
cool
cover shit. Man. It's even the weapons I don't really want to use, they still look cool as hell. Cool.
I still want you're right. I want to use them anyway because they're
exactly. Because when they look cool, if you can make a weapon that looks cool enough that it'll make me change classes, I'm in. I'll do it.
Totally. And the fashion in this game, just the weapon fashion in this game.
Oh god, Even the guns also. What I like about Heart Machine is they care a lot about they seem to care a lot about like cool. Like cool is not just like form and function.
Stylish as fuck.
Yeah. Because the function is good in this, that's for sure. But the form, as always, is good. I like the callbacks to old stuff, but I also like the 3D rendition. A lot of like the traversal obviously takes a lot from Breath of the Wild, like everything does.
Yeah.
But right, but again, it has a glider, but it does it. I also like that their glider's a little bit. It doesn't go as far like forward. It's a little bit like more of a sink.
It's definitely more of like preventing fall damage, kind of.
Yeah.
So it allows you to descend quickly without having to like in Elden Ring. One of the like biggest pissers in Elden Ring is that you have to go around all the time to get to the bottom of a mountain because you don't have like something like that. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you just jump off the top of a mountain, you get to the bottom. That's what this kind of does. It allows you to get down from high places. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it allows for like a sort of like special like way of traveling that's not just like a car or like vehicle. I really like that. I like that they've done all of those things because like they work. They're not anything that's like super new in terms of like video games as a whole.
Yeah, that's not revolutionary.
Yeah. The stuff that they've included is stuff that works with Hyper Light Drifter and like the dashing, the movement, the coolness, that all like they didn't put something in here just for the sake of it being popular. They put it in because they wanted to. Yeah. That being said, it's interesting that they've done the extraction shooter. So I've never played an extraction shooter before.
Yeah.
That is what this game type is.
Very much so, yes.
Right. I've played games that are like Fortnite. I've played games that are like MOBAs and every other popular genre. I've not played one like this. So it's interesting because I have an idea of what some of the extraction shooter mechanics are, but I've never actually played one. So it's like their version of it seems pretty cool. It seems like they have a pretty good idea of like what they want to do with it.
Yeah. It is a really cool system as far as like it's the reason why I'm still interested in it, even though it's roguelite. It's because you have some degree of control over success or failure, right? So like from a run, like you actually get like 4 lives in a run,
right? Yeah, the 4 reses.
So you can die 4 times and then come back, and you get like 4 bites of the apple for this run, which is pretty cool. Is a definitely, and then you can leave whenever you want. Like if you feel like you've got what you came for, and like you can farm that way. Like you can go in and like just kill some dudes and then extract, and then keep doing that over and over again. The cool thing about it though is that there's a price for extraction. Like you can't just leave. Like you have to
you have to beat
trigger the extraction. Yeah, there's like a little boss. There's like a little mini boss, a little bit of a like a rush. Like there's phases. You got to go through 3 phases in a little arena. So there's a test. Like there's always, that's the thing. Like there's always a test. Everything that you're doing in that game so far is like a test.
Yeah.
So,
and that carries over from Drifter a little bit too. I think like even just like there's a little bit of fast travel in Drifter, but there's not a lot. So if you're going back to like look for stuff, you do have to kind of fight through stuff a little bit, which I've kind of come to like, and I think Heart Machine does a really good job of that because I know that I'm going to have to, and I guess like Souls does it too to an extent of like, it's not 100%. You're going to have to travel and fight a little bit, but it's also the part about the game that feels good. It doesn't feel like I'm like, oh great, I got to fight again. It's more like, oh, kick ass. I gotta put the airs on a little bit because I got to go fight this thing if I want to go grab that piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's risk reward, right? Like you can be in a world in a cycle, I guess they call it, for like an hour, like kicking butt, but you're like your health is going down, like you run out of resources, and then it's like, man, do I want to take this risk and go after this boss, or do I want to extract now, cut my losses, get out of here quick, and then come back later?
Right.
You have that choice. There are a few games out there like that right now that I think are pretty cool. Like Witchfire is like that, which is a really cool game.
I'm assuming that that's part of like the extract. I mean, I know extraction is like the new like meta genre tag. And I like the concept of it. It is definitely something that is.
Oh my god, just suicide.
Ooh, yeah, that fall.
That's all right.
Like how that guy was talking to you on his way down.
Well, I'm out of ideas. I'm trying to get over to like that plateau to the northwest, like this area. Man, I can't fucking find it.
That's
I don't know if it's in here, because I was looking at this to see if I couldn't like cross over or something. This seems like it has a door, but it's not really a door.
Man, it would be great if there was someone here who played this before and had any kind of memory related to this. That would be good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know anyone who's played this game before.
Yeah, none of us.
New to me. Yeah.
I just found a half pipe. That's cute. I like some of the destroyed parts of Hyperlight Breaker is really cool. They show a little bit more of the the ruined world, not just like what looks like ancient ruins, but is actually like a lived in society with the civilization. But yeah, I mean overall, like I think the game feels really good. I like it. It's the roguelike part I actually do like, just because I do like roguelikes. But they did it well. It's not like I feel like they definitely thought it through about does Drifter's DNA work as this thing that we're trying to make, this extraction, action adventure gear thing. And I think it worked because they bothered to put in they're very slow, like you said earlier. And I like the devs that work there, and Alex, the head of
the main guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like it because that slowness really does pay off, and that they are taking their time with it. It is not just a project for the sake of being a project or to make money.
Yeah, it's quality. What they put out is high quality shit. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it reflects. I think they did a really good job. The game works. People were complaining about it on Steam, as they always are, but I've played it. I've seen very little stuttering. The frame rate is fine. Even where it is jumpy, it's so minor. It doesn't really stop anything.
I get a solid 30 frames on Steam Deck, and it's usually at 40 frames on Steam Deck. So it runs way better than No Rest for the Wicked ever did on Steam Deck. So
yeah.
I've looked at that so many times, I don't even know what it is.
Do you need help, Nate?
I'm kind of stuck. I don't know where the fuck I'm going.
Okay. All right. I want you to go to the back gate site of Grace. Do you have that?
Back gate right here?
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I was there earlier, but I was closer to intros, I believe.
All right. There should be a small room where you'll find a summoning pool. So yeah, in there. Can you go in there? Did you emote in front of this lady?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I think you need to.
Okay. What's the emote? Have mercy for the spirited away shamans.
Have mercy, yeah. At the altar, you will need to perform the "Oh Mother" gesture in front of the altar to trigger it.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if I even have that.
Probably do. Here somewhere.
Is this the dragon thing from 3?
Yeah.
Have mercy here? Probably for mercy.
No. Should just say "Oh Mother" gesture.
Nope, that's everything. Okay, where the fuck is
Let me see if I can find "Oh Mother."
Okay.
Yeah, it should say found north of Bonnie Village. Have you been to Bonnie Village?
I don't think so.
It's in front of a headless statue.
Bonnie Village.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound familiar, but...
Oh, yeah, you haven't been there. That's right, you have not been there. Shit.
Okay. Is it
about halfway through the DLC?
Is it over here?
No, it's not there. Go to zoom in a little bit. And go north a little bit. Village of Flies.
Oh, I have been there.
Bonnie Village. Yeah, you have been there. Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to get it from there.
All right. Let's take a look. Oh boy.
And it should be in front of it. You got to find a headless statue. It should be in front of that.
Okay.
So while you do that, more Hyperlight Breaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, did you have like high expectations for this one, Tom? Given that it's Heart Machine and that it's the prequel to.
I mean, not. I did in the sense of like,
as you said, like a lot of people on Steam are like disappointed or they are not liking it. So I'm wondering, like, overall, are you positive about it? Are you disappointed about it? Are you
I'm positive on it for sure. I mean, and that was, I mean, mostly me just from the 2 or 3 hours I already have alone. I expected there to be like any early access game. There's always going to be some shitheads who are just complaining because of, you know, it doesn't
run on their. They don't understand what early access is.
Right. Or they don't know what they're getting into because they don't read the description.
Right.
I know the No Clip documentary group has been doing a lot of stuff with them. I haven't actually watched them all from the beginning, but I think they've been doing like as it gets developed, they've been doing these like little mini diaries. Shots with the diaries with Heart Machine, and it sounds like they were kind of in some dire straits for a bit, trying to find like a publisher.
Which is hard to imagine, right? Like, Jesus.
Right. Well, and that's the you know, I mean, gesturing to the last like 2 or 3 years, like layoffs are pretty fucking rampant, and games industry as a whole isn't in a great place. I mean, it's kind of just like a big dark cloud over the whole thing in terms of what's going to happen.
Heart Machine's a little scary because I think Heart Machine is not very compromising when it comes to quality, right? So they're not like they're not going to do accelerated schedules. They're going to wait until their product is good to release it.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of publishers don't have that kind of patience, right?
No, not at all. Because what they, you know, I mean, the EA stuff, obviously, like your typical big corpo that just wants to like make games for the sake of the money. Obviously, that's not going to sell very well to a group like that. And I think there's, you know, they are still an independent, like focused group. They do want to make games where they don't have to give up as much, you know, creative freedom for good reason. I had expectations in that. I was hoping that Heart Machine is one of those studios where I just let them cook, you know, like there are legitimate criticisms for a lot of their stuff. I was hoping that it at least like not having played Solar Ash outside of a demo at a convention last year, I was just hoping that they make the game that they wanted to make. I was hoping that at least, you know, if the extraction part didn't work or if the multiplayer wasn't great, that the sword and gun and the dash, as long as those feel good, it's a fun tool I can play around in and be like, yeah, they tried it in 3D, it didn't work.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars, right? It's like, give me lightsaber, X-wing, and the Force, and it's gonna be okay, you know?
Right, and that it's funny that you mentioned that because like Star Wars games, the best ones before they've tried the real open world stuff were the ones that were specialized, right? Like if you wanted to do Jedi stuff and lightsabers, right? You had your game Rogue Squadron if you wanted to do ships, and then there were some RTS and some other stuff. Those work well when they specialize because that's where they can spend their time focusing, and that's when you know people would spend that money. I think that is also true of studios like Heart Machine because they got to make the thing that they wanted to make. And if the core element of that is good enough, like if the movement or the combat's good enough, people are willing to usually oversee that kind of stuff. I mean, look at the Division and like shooters, right?
I mean, I just spent half an hour explaining it. Like I'm overlooking that. Like I'm overlooking the roguelite part of it. I'm overlooking the difficulty curve and the leveling up problems and the gear situation. Like I'm going for it because the fucking gameplay is so damn good.
Right. And that's true of like a lot of different genres too. Like you know, I've been playing Path of Exile, which is just a Diablo clone for the past like 2 months. And you know, the usual like thing with dungeon crawlers is like, oh well, you just want to keep collecting loot, or are you just going to buy more games where that's all you do is the same cycle? And it's like, yeah, but that cycle, there's a reason why it works, right? There's a reason why studios keep making it, but also why players keep buying them.
I mean, that's
and
what
with
Destiny
a game like this, yeah, exactly. It's exactly like Destiny's the same way, but Destiny's formula works.
Exactly, it's so deeply flawed. I do a lot of bitching about Destiny on this channel.
Oh yeah, no, it's
and yet you've logged so many hours.
Yeah, I still got 2,000 hours in it because it's fucking good. Like the combat is good. I would
say that makes you an informed person for the most part.
Yeah. Like like I've said, it's like the best bad game I've ever played and the worst good game I've ever played. Like it's good enough to make me come back the loop that what Tom's talking about. Like the core thing that it's trying to be good at, it's really fucking good at it.
And nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
But no, like overall, like I can gush about it for hours, but like I really am happy with it. I like the gameplay. I like the feel so far, which is the thing that I was the most worried about. The negative reviews, I was like, well, if it's bad, I'm still gonna buy it. I want to support them anyway.
Hey, that's the other thing. Yeah, like Heart Machine is definitely a studio that people should want to support.
Right.
Like they're doing it right. They're the ones out there putting quality out there, taking their time. They're not taking like advantage of their player base. Like, you know, they've been doing it right for years. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as much as you can attest to that. I do believe they are really in it for the culture and not for the cash grab. I mean, all that aside, like if it was terrible, I would have spent the money and been like, yeah, if it's that bad, I'll admit to it. I'm not here to just defend him. I do want to look at it critically, but it's good. I also I agree with the difficulty part. It's kind of hard for me to figure that because the rogue, like we were talking about before, the roguelike stuff means I went into games like the Souls games thinking I'm just going to die a bunch anyway, so I don't really care.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's part of the element. So like the difficulty in this has been great for me because I totally recognize it as being very difficult, and you're collecting maybe 1 piece, 2 pieces of gear piecemeal.
I think that's the part that I think they need to adjust a little bit. I think it's the scaling. It's not necessarily the combat, which I like being hard. It's the gameplay itself. I think is kind of tuned about right. It's the progression that I think is a little bit punishing. I think that's the problem.
And it definitely is. I think their first attempt at a progression in a system like this. Like it's not it's not an MMO, but it's not a single player game either.
Yeah.
So in like these types of like gear quality or loot quality games have like a balance issue usually, and that's it's like Destiny. It's like any other game. I assume with time.
Rush for the Wicked was the same way. Nate, you remember this? Like when you first play it, like you're a naked motherfucker for like the first 4 hours that you play that game. It takes a while to get some traction in that game and like feel like you're gaining any power. To be honest, I do think it's a little too hard, but I don't think they're that far off. I think it's just going to take a couple of tweaks of some dials here or there.
I was going to say the same thing. I really do think it's like a 10, maybe 15% like scale back of whatever that difficulty looks like, because after Drifter, I expect it to be like, nope, there were 5 guys, not 4, and you fucked up and let one shoot you. That's just death, which is cool. I think it does. I will say, I guess, kind of
lose because you fucked up, not because the game overwhelmed you or because it, you
it wasn't just like a horde of things like, oh, you're supposed to have like a rare by now or whatever. I will say, I think you do have to go into it with the mindset of it being difficult, which is why, it's the same thing with Souls, right? I think the difference is that Souls had so many fans that it was very easy to say get good, and then people just sort of like understood the mistake.
Especially in latter day like culture and gaming, it's like people know Dark Souls is hard. Like that's the point of it. Like people go in with eyes open, understanding it's going to be challenging.
Right, it's part of the reputation. Most people know that just from pop culture. Overall, I like it. It is Drifter difficult, but I think it's kind of I'm a freak about that shit. I like getting stuff piecemeal sometimes. As long as like that is the intended pace of the game. I don't mind like beating against the brick wall because I've also played other roguelikes that kind of have that mentality.
I'll put it this way. I'd rather it on the side of being more difficult than it should be as opposed to being easier than it should be, right? I prefer that it ask more of me rather than be too easy, right?
If it had the issue of being too easy, it would become more like the problem with games like that are too easy is it ends up being about like the end game usually if it's an MMO where it's like if it's so easy you just
becomes a looter. It becomes like that's
it becomes it's mostly a time sink, which is fine. It might scratch that Skinner box itch, but the problem is once you get to the point where you've done everything and you're in like whatever the endless part is, then you're spending every day like logging in being like, oh nope, no rare stratagems because I'm just going to try again tomorrow.
That's exactly right, because like I'm thinking about it now. What did I really love about Hyper Light Drifter? Hyper Light Drifter is a hard game. It was thought to be hard when it came out. It's still considered to be a fairly challenging game. I mean, the bosses are tough, and like what I like about it is that it's a fucking skill check. That's what I like
It
about
is,
Sekiro. That's what I like about Dark Souls. It's a skill check, and that's what I like about Hyper Light Breaker. It's a fucking skill check. Again, it would be nice to have a little more control over my loadout sooner. Again, like it's very similar to Nourish the Wicked in that way, where once you have resources, you have a lot of control over your loadout and how you play the game. But before that time, it takes a little while to get those resources, and that whole time you're having to play a different style that you don't always like want to play. That's the part that I want them to tweak a little bit so that you get to play the way you want to play more consistently earlier on. That's kind of what I want.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, like I think you and I agree. Like the actual combat difficulty is kind of dialed in. Like I don't really want that to change. And again, I don't want them to go too far. I don't want them to go to turn it into a looter, and that's what you're doing. I want it to be about the combat, about the skill, about getting you leveling up, not your character leveling up, right? So
yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I think I agree with the combat stuff. Like what I like about both Heart or Drifter games is that they is the aesthetic, but it's also why people like the combat, right? Like when it feels good to dash, when it feels good to use your sword and gun, that's what makes people want to use it more. Not even just because it's more damage, but because it looks cooler. And they do that with like looking cool too, right? It's also partly why people like the combat, but it's a Souls-like, so it's like cool is earned here. Like you can't just be cool simply because you have the cool tools. That's part of the skill check, but it's also the motivation.
It's not flashy for flashy's sake. It's flat. You get the better you are, the more flashy you look.
Right, exactly. And even when you're not, like, I also like the element of like there's still some comedy in games like this. Like I think there was in Drifter a little bit where like there's times where there's like the goofy showdown type scene or something where like a guy gets crushed by a bigger guy and that's the boss. I like that because it's serious to a point. It's kind of like the Metal Gear Solid thing, which I know was an inspiration for it, the original one. Because it's mostly serious with a little bit of comedy in there, and that kind of helps it like
it takes its subject matter seriously, and it takes its players seriously, but it doesn't take itself seriously.
Right. Which I think makes for a really good element of that game. And I like it because the combat reflects that. Like cool is earned when you are doing stuff, and usually when you are surviving, all those abilities that keep you alive and make you like, perform better, that shit is already inherently cool. And it's also like it's like if the carrot on a stick, type thing with the treadmill, but the treadmill is cool and the carrot is also cool. Yeah. So the whole thing is kind of a win-win package.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of like that gets down to like that's sort of the playing is its own reward, right? It's actually sort of reflects their the central mechanic. One of the cool like new mechanics that I think Hyper Light Drifter kind of, I don't know if it invented it, but it really definitely popularized it, was the getting ammo by doing your melee attacks.
Yes.
So like it encourages a loop of gameplay that it's making you. It rewards you for being aggressive, and it rewards you for being strategic, and like you have agency over how much ammo your economy by playing well. And so this loop, right? And that's sort of the same thing on like a micro level. So like getting there is still fun, but also the goal is fun also. So yeah, I think it's great. I think the reviews it's getting on Steam are because that's what Steam is like. That's the fucking internet.
Well, Steam also has and also I guess similar news to like all the layoffs. Steam has a massive Nazi problem that people have known for years, and every year it gets worse. Yeah. So it's also like I also don't regularly read reviews. In fact, this is the first game where when I went to the store page to buy it, I just happened to look at the reviews. Most of the time, I'm either buying something on a recommendation or I'm buying it because like someone has asked me to play it, or I just know that it's cool. There's very rarely do I ever look at Steam reviews, but I think that's also kind of the nature of like, if you don't look at them often, a lot of games end up getting that like, dead game type comment early on.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. There's a whole internet culture, and again, like not for nothing, but they're like, let's be honest, it's Nazis or Nazi sympathizers. Yeah. People 100%. In that vein, incels and shit like that are toxic people who are out there specifically because they want to put negative reviews out there, and that's what they do. That's their thing. That's their shtick.
It's fun for them.
Yeah. They're trolls. That's what it is. They're fucking trolls. So that's not to say that the game's perfect. I think we talked about how like the things that we don't like about it are things that can improve. But like, compare again. We have to grade it on a curve because it is early access, and if it were perfect, it would have just had a 1.0 release. That's the whole point of it. They did that stream on Kind of Funny the other day, and basically it was all like, we know it's not perfect. We're releasing in early access because we want you guys to help us test it out. That's the point of early access. That, and because they probably need the money, they need the cash for influx to continue developing it. And you know what? If that's what it takes to keep Heart Machine alive and keep this game coming out, like,
yeah,
I'm all in for that. Like, yeah, let me be a beta
Shut up
tester.
and take my money.
Yeah, 100%.
Plus, like, again, if you're getting on board, you get a discount on the game itself. Like early access, typically it's cheaper to buy into early access. You get to play the dope mechanics right out the gate. You get to support a developer that you appreciate and that you care about, who's done good stuff before. And in this case, you get for free one of the greatest games ever made. So
that's
like,
right. I forgot about that that bundle.
Yeah. So like, I understand people who may not just don't want to play early access because they don't want to play a half-finished game. I get that. That's fine. I get people who don't want to play early access because they don't want to burn out on the game and they want to wait for the full product before they start it. I get that totally too. What I don't get is people like shitting on it because this is like a shitty game. It's like, yeah, it's not finished, dog. Like, that's the point. Like, you knew that going in. What did you think this was? Like, it's early access. Yeah. That's the way it works.
If it's stuff like combat feel, as long as it's combat feel and they understand like what the lineage is, I can kind of get it. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But yeah, when it's the stuff that's just like, it's clearly like thinly veiled protective layer against it being like, we're just complaining about early access. That's really what they're complaining about still. Though.
That's what it's
like,
yeah.
If it's the game feel, if it's just like, hey, it's not for me, it's understandable. When people are like, it's really stuttery, I'm like, is it? Optimization and performance is like, I can see it if it's really bad. Again, like that's one I would weigh heavily, but this one,
it's not.
I don't know if it's a card problem, but I'm not seeing any of that.
There's
a little bit of like frame-y kind of skip and a little bit of tearing, but it is so tertiary, I don't even notice it.
Totally.
I never notice it while I'm fighting.
Tell me what you think about this. I wonder if people thought that it was going to be easier to run, like it should run like an iPad, for two reasons. One, because Hyperlight Drifter on everything and can actually run on an iPad. But is it also because the art style makes it look, at least from afar, like it should run like Fortnite?
Yeah, I think so. And I think like,
you think
partially I do. Sometimes, I wonder if it's people who, I think the worst case scenario is like people who think, it's the sequel to Hyper Light Drifter, so it'll be 2E, right? Because I swear there are some people who say stuff that's like, it's not directly admitting it, but they say shit where I'm like,
they're self-reporting.
Did you literally think this was going to be another 2D?
They clearly didn't know what they were getting into. They didn't pay attention. They're self-reporting and they don't know that they're self-reporting.
It's one thing if they thought like, I didn't think it was going to be an extraction game, sure. But when they're like, I didn't know it was going to be 3D, I'm like, that, buddy, I can't help you. That's a screenshot, like, Google. I can't. What do you mean? I do think there are people who, some of the reviews were saying stuff like, I love Drifter, but this just isn't working for me for these reasons. And some of them were like more game feel. Some of them were saying stuff like, like it's really stuttery and it's just like, it's not performant enough for early access. But I've bought games in early access that are way worse off than this, that are like 3D, but from like top down, like other ARPGs. I've never.
I mean, again, No Rest for the Wicked is a good example.
Right.
That was,
exactly.
People loved that when it came out, and it ran like dog shit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was Helldivers didn't have it had some performance issues, but not necessarily graphic. It was mostly network, and people were still big into that. I do think multiplayer has to do with that, but there's a number of games where when the core of the gameplay is good, if it's in early access, people understand that. And there's always going to be shitheads who don't get it. It's I think now it's just the public outpouring of people who are bored with too much time on their hands need something to hate. And this is...
I think, unfortunately, the reviews do impact sales, which sucks. But I think people should understand, if anyone who's listening to this should understand that the reviews that you see on these sites, and Steam in particular, is not entirely representative of reality. And it's not actually representative of the overall community position, at least at this small sample size at early access. Like maybe if it was like, a game that's been out on Steam for 10 years and there's like 100,000 reviews, and at that point you've got a sample size that probably is a little more reflective of what people's real sentiments about the game are collectively. But at this stage, if you go in there and you see it's mostly negative, like that's how most games start on Steam, because that's everyone wants to come out and shit on stuff, because
especially the bigger known stuff that like people know is coming out. That's like AAA. That stuff usually has like an immediate. I mean, sometimes it's well earned like Anthem, but sometimes it's just like, they put in a black character and all of a sudden they're mad like that. We see that shit all the time.
These are the same people. People need to remember we're living in a world where right now the zeitgeist is the Blake Lively shit going on in Hollywood, and like people, and the internet is taking the side of the dude in that scenario. Well, like, come on, guys.
Yeah. There's always going to be someone who for as many stories as humans have about good guys beating bad guys, there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that they're the bad guy.
Yeah, totally. So
but overall, okay.
Those reviews, they're written by people who think that Blake Lively is the antagonist in that scenario. So just
there is some truth to the stuff that people are like critiquing. But I mean, a lot of like 90% of the ones you're going to see are going to be something that's based on like either it's a computer specific problem that no one else is having, or it's just upset because they didn't read what's on the tin, basically.
Totally. I was in fucking Xenomorphville. I was like, what is that?
You can see it on the map.
Oh yeah, like I just didn't realize what these were. Like, that's a lot.
Do you want to pick a fight? You want to go start?
No, not at all.
You starting shit?
I'm good. I'm glad I waited till nightfall.
There's someone in chat who's asking. Coons is asking any tips on beating Rykard.
Isn't that the one where you gotta get the spear? The
giant,
that's
shock gimmick spear? Fight. Yeah, that's a gimmick fight. You need that weapon, which they give you as you walk in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, my man, you might want to, if you got to take a look around when you first get there. There's one guy who like talked about it in the mansion before you go down there at the end of the hallway.
Oh, they don't give it to you like the Yorm thing, do they? I thought they gave it to you up front.
It's kind of there. You gotta, it's like behind you or something. I forget exactly where it is, but there's a weapon that like
it's behind Yorm in Dark Souls 3, but it's like right at the front door. But no, like that's the first question. First of all, are you using the trick weapon? Because that's the first thing you should be doing. It's still not a like it's not a completely like it's not as easy with that weapon as the Yorm fight. Yeah, exactly. It's still you still have to do a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Man, tips.
I definitely remember that the part with the sword. I think it's the first phase anyway, where like there's like a lot of things, like it's a lot of like little projectiles or whatever. I remember that part being very much one of those fights where I was like, I'm gonna start out by dodging more than attacking, only because I don't have enough time to attack, so I'm just going to try and make them all good ones.
Yeah, patience for sure. I don't know. I will be honest with you. I fucking hated the Rykard fight. That's like so not my style of fight. It's a big monster fight with some going in, and there's a lot of AOE being chucked at you there because like he's like area of denial where he's putting shit on the floor that you can't step in. That always annoys me. So I don't know. I that to me is a very clunky fight. So I might be the wrong person to be talking to for like advice on Rykard. But definitely first and foremost, make sure you're using the trick weapon. Because that's what it's designed for.
Man.
What I would say.
Yeah. Especially if it's not a fight you're enjoying, get it over with quick.
Yeah. Also, I think Rykard, it's Volcano Manor. I think Rykard is optional, but
yeah, I mean if they're already there.
Well, he's one of the Empyreans, I think. So it's like he's one of the more important bosses lore wise. I don't think he's like Golden Path necessary though. So that's the other thing. Like it is an RPG, you could always leave and come back. if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think I did that on Rykard once or twice.
Yeah.
Just knowing ahead of time, I was like, it's definitely doable, but yeah, I was like, it's another Yorm, so I'm gonna have to figure out if I want to do something different.
I don't know what your build is with Rykard in this playthrough, but having powerful ranged weapons is helpful because if you have to get up in his grill, because he has those area denial attacks, I find that to be a real tedious thing to have to go in there and be like melee heavy on him. So I would, if you have to do melee, I actually find that having a quicker build can be helpful because he's not going to stagger. So like doing jumping R2s is not going to like make much of a difference. So having maybe more of a dex approach might be helpful, but you still have to be patient that way and be more mindful of getting out of those area denials than getting damage in. Like maintaining health is more important than getting your damage in. You don't want to do those trades. Like you don't want to trade health for damage. Anyway, that's how I approached it. And I got out of that fight as quickly as I could because I did not enjoy it. So, probably not very helpful, but that was my approach. Incidentally, I don't know. It might actually be helpful for you to go check on the VODs here because you can see how Nate did it.
Oh yeah, I did do this. Yeah, I beat base game before doing Shadow of the Erdtree, so it's probably down in like the 30s or 20s somewhere.
Yeah. It'll be easy to find because it'll be in the context of Volcano Manor somewhere. It'll just be towards the end of Volcano Manor, wherever those episodes are. And Volcano Manor is very visually distinctive, so by the time you click into it, you'll probably be able to tell whether it's that episode or not.
All right. There's the bell. Now I got to go back to the church thing.
Blow that finger, baby.
All right, did that.
I don't think I've seen this before.
Ooh, cool.
No. I still think this environment is so sick.
It's very cool, but I hate every enemy here.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The xenomorph lamprey motherfuckers, the spider hand.
This
looks
like Prometheus out here. Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has that very like Wayland-Yutani universe look.
Yes, indeed.
Very gray,
very desolate, very black, like black rock, and like still kind of shiny.
Alien. Very alien and like Creep Town. Hey, is your girlfriend still here?
Maybe.
Find out.
I want that
Ninja Knight. Yeah, she's there.
What's up, girl?
Yeah, I know we'll talk about it a lot over the next couple of weeks, but overall,
for sure.
Overall, Breaker is good.
It is good. It's also designed to be very supportive of multiplayer. So if that's something you guys are like into,
I haven't actually done that with Breaker yet. I was going to try and do a little bit of that tonight at some point. I'm curious as to how that's working right now.
From what I've seen, I've been watching streams of it. It looks real smooth. It's way better than Dark Souls. Like it's not like it doesn't have weird requirements and stipulations to get in. You just drop in.
I would hope it's way more direct.
Yeah, it looks real smooth so far, so that could be cool. So yeah, there you go. That's Hyperlight Breaker.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad it came out. I actually didn't know it was coming out until like 2 days ago, I think. Or it was like yesterday morning. I was like, oh, it's out now. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they only announced the actual date, I think, right before Christmas. So like it hasn't been advertised that much recently.
Yeah.
So, and then hopefully, the people are saying Nintendo Switch reveal tomorrow. I'm dubious right now. So I haven't actually.
Yeah.
But that's the scuttlebutt. That's what they're saying.
One of those like leaks, some kind of. I mean, especially like bigger leaks. I'm just like, I don't really believe it until it happens.
Well, usually they give like they post the day before that there's going to be a direct, right? Which obviously they haven't yet, unless I haven't checked in the last half hour. So maybe they have since then, but
right.
Yeah. So I don't know, I'd like them to reveal it because I'm fucking pumped for Switch 2. I can't wait for that. But I'm not. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about them actually announcing something tomorrow. So I did have a question for you guys though.
What's up?
I'm curious because I've been thinking about this. I've been in a little bit of a gaming drought. We talked about this in the last stream, but I'm really looking forward to 2025. It's getting off to a great start with Hyperlight Breaker. So I'm wondering, what in 2025 do you guys want to see? What are you most excited about, or what would get you excited? Like, what do you want in your video games in 2025? What would make you get back into gaming and be like, this is fucking great?
Monster Hunter Wilds, man.
All right,
that's right. That is coming out this year. I forgot about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something that you know coming. It could be just something that you wish would come.
That's cool.
Yeah, I feel like It's like the repeat. I think it was 2 years ago. God, has it been 2 years since the Dead Space remake came out? Yeah, it has been.
I think so. Yeah.
God damn. That 2023 was great because like right off the bat in the first 3 months was both the Dead Space remake and the shadow drop of Metroid Prime remaster for the Switch.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I remember that because it was also like something else came out that year. Armored Core was also that year, and I remember
that was like
thinking,
publishers saying like, we know this guy Tom. We're just gonna make games for that guy.
Back to back in like less than a 2 week period too, which was phenomenal. I was like, I've gotten almost all of my favorite games remade. I don't think I need to.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar effect now because Breaker was the only real bigger game I was looking forward to this year.
Yeah.
I think there's other stuff that like sounds interesting, but in terms of like, oh, I know I'm going to probably like it, I don't have a lot of those at the moment because I think I'm mostly just like satisfied with a lot of the stuff that I already have.
That's a good place to be, man. I wish I was there. I'm excited about Switch too because I've been really jonesing for that Nintendo vibe. Like my Switch has been not, it's not been getting a lot of use lately. I've been diving back into Tears of the Kingdom, which has been a lot of fun actually. So it's good to get back into that. But other than that, like I want Mario, man. I want Donkey Kong. I want Metroid. I want that Nintendo sheen. Like I've been missing that.
Yeah.
So the fact that this year is probably going to give us a lot of new Nintendo stuff, I'm really fucking psyched up for that. Believe it or not, I'm super psyched for these rumors about the new Steam controller, the new Valve controller.
For sure.
That if that's a real thing and that actually comes out this year, I'm gonna fucking, I don't know. I'll pay $1,000, whatever you want. Take my money. Yes, please. And yeah, I think between those two, that would be dope. If they had 75% of what I want from the launch window for Switch 2, that would be amazing. Like I want new 3D Mario. I want some kind of Zelda 3D remake or remaster, whether it's Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, something like that. I want that on the new Switch. And an announcement of Mario Kart 9 would be sick. And sometime in 2025, that would be dope. And man, if I got that plus Hyper Light Breaker, and then if they do any like new releases for No Rest for the Wicked, and they get more content out for that, which they're supposed to announce here before the end of this month, that's a big year for Ian. Like I'll be down for all of that. I'm super excited for all that stuff. That would be bigger than 2024 and 2023 probably combined. Although Tears was 2023, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tears was 2020. No, Tears was last year.
No way.
Well, it just turned to 25. So.
Oh no, it is. Sorry, it was 2023.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
Yeah, okay.
Wow, I thought it was a year ago. Shit, I'm way off.
Because it was 10 years Baldur's Gate. Yeah, so
that's right. Yeah, it was. It would have been 2023. Okay, that makes sense.
So like, it's hard to say that anything's gonna, short of 2017 when Breath of the Wild came out. It's kind of hard to say that anything's gonna be 2023 just because Tears came out. Anytime there's a mainline 3D Zelda, I'm gonna be like in the bag for that.
Oh yeah.
Outside of that, probably like Elden Ring didn't hit for me as much as I'd wanted it to, even though I fucking love that game, and it's this game. Yeah. It's like,
it was a 9 out of 10, but instead of the 12 out of 10 you were expecting.
Well, I wasn't expecting it. It was what I was hoping for, but it's that game now since I've modded it, so that's helped significantly. I'd love to see a Sekiro sequel. I'd love to see
sequel row. Yeah, I would love.
Man, that. Can you imagine? Because Sekiro is definitely a top 5 game for me all time. I think that's a revolutionary game. I think that does not get enough credit. I played Nine Souls this year. Nine Souls was a blast. Still playing that, actually. Really enjoying that one. It's 2D Metroidvania Sekiro, which is
I heard that one, like that, the final boss apparently is like super hard.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there, but I've what I'm hearing is that it's really good though. Like it's like one of the best final bosses anyone's ever seen in the game. So
I've heard a good amount of praise for it too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on a lot of Game of the Year lists at the end of the year. So, and rightly so. What I played about halfway through, and it's really awesome. So I'm really enjoying that. And yeah, if I get any of that this year, which we should, given the Nintendo Switch is coming out, it's gonna be good. I'm psyched for video games again for a while, like for the first time in a while. It's been kind of dormant for the last 2 years for me, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, I'm not in the habit of playing games too much right now. I'm playing this obviously, but this is like the only game I play, and it's only like
Once a
tonight.
week.
It's only like once a week right now. I did play a little bit. I think last night or two. If you've noticed that I've changed out my outfit and my spells are a little different, but that's just because I was going to see something real quick, but I didn't bother to change back yet.
You got the right helmet on. That's good. That's one of the few good pieces in this game.
Yeah.
Not a lot of those.
Yeah, so what's the current? Oh, sorry. Continue with the games talk.
Oh yeah. But otherwise, I don't really have too much going on. I want to get back in Baldur's Gate. I wanted to play Armored Core.
You haven't finished Tears.
I haven't finished Tears.
I haven't finished Tears
those
either.
Are the big
actually,
3 besides this.
Do you guys have interest in Tears? Like, are you like big into
I
that
do.
version of Zelda?
I like it. I just
not everybody
haven't-
is like,
Yeah.
which is fine.
I think I assume through the wavelength of genetics that Nate and I probably feel the same way, which is like I like Tears. Even if it doesn't live up to Breath for some people. I like more of the same thing. I think for me, it's mostly just other stuff keeps getting in the way, and I just don't like. There's times like I mostly play it on trips now. Like I kind of work on like shrines.
You can play it at any time, right? So like,
yeah. So I've kind of, I think maybe it's a good thing from Breath of the Wild, but yeah, I kind of feel like I could maybe not finish it for the next 10 years and be fine, and like I could finish it one day and be like, that was really good.
Yeah.
And that would be completely okay. Like I beat what was it, 2017, I think September, I got my Switch, and I didn't beat Breath until like February of that next year.
Yeah.
But that was, because I did want to get through it. Tears is good. I just haven't, hasn't won out against other games for a while. And I think the problem is some really big games have come through since then that I was like genuinely like the good stuff just sort of washed other good stuff out.
Yeah, no, I get it. And again, it's like much like 90% of it, you've kind of already like get it. Like you played Breath of the Wild. Wow, this has happened like 4 times today. What the fuck?
Well, I kind of did this one in person. Like, I wonder if it's just too far. It is.
Yeah.
Hard to tell in this game because you've got that Dark Souls muscle memory where you can't fall more than 7 feet without dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then randomly you'll fall someplace and it'll be like, why didn't I not take any damage on that?
In this game, Dex does the fall damage thing, right? Because that really fucked me up when I was starting to use the claws more. I would like fall off of stuff thinking I died and then I didn't. But I'd have like a sliver of health and I'm like, well shit, I guess I don't know, like I don't have any like reference of where like my terminal velocity is.
Yeah. Well, if it were me, the one game that like it doesn't exist, no one's announced it, it's probably never going to happen. My dream game is Zelda Breath of the Wild, an actual like mainline Zelda game with Sekiro combat.
Yeah,
I can see that.
And proper, and on top of that, I want them to fix the fucking Master Sword. Those are that's what I want. I want Zelda Sekiro, fixing the Master Sword. That would be the greatest game of all time for me. I would never want for anything else. I'd just play that forever, and that would be it for me. So.
Yeah, I think you'd really like to have a Zelda game that had. Okay, I was gonna say, oh crap! Don't let it be down there.
Damn, that's a lot, dog.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. Not as much as I had. I think I was in a half mil.
Can you spend that? Can you get a level out of that?
Yeah, I think I can get a single level out of it now.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'll think about doing that.
Yeah, I will. In fact,
anything that's got Zelda DNA in it, sign me the fuck up. That's why I like Souls.
I think you'd really like to have like a Zelda game where like in Twilight Princess where you actually had sword techniques.
Oh, that's the thing I miss so much from Twilight Princess. That's one of the reasons why it's the best, like one of the best Zeldas.
Yeah,
because the combat is like next level in that game. The sword techniques are sick.
Yeah, like more
the mortal draw thing.
Yeah,
man, that's so satisfying. I could just do that all day.
Oh, it's so close. I'm literally 1,000 away. Okay,
you got some runes? Pop them.
Yeah, I've got some runes. But yeah, I think once you get that back, like in like if they bother to like make that a focus.
People shit on the combat in Breath of the Wild and Tears. I totally disagree. I think the combat in those games is real good if you care to actually play it properly. Like I find people who aren't good at the combat or don't like it, like they're not even parrying. They're not doing the perfect dodge. Like they're not even doing those mechanics. It's like, of course it sucks because then it's just mashing. Like you need to be more strategic about it. Like you need to actually use the tools and mechanics that are there. If you do that, it's real good.
Combat in like the puzzle Zeldas
techniques though is like
That's true. Yeah.
It was never meant to be a like light attack, heavy attack thing. I mean, it has that, but that's like the most like modern it is. Like even like combat in like Ocarina of Time is like it's not super complex, but there is like there's timing, and sometimes there is just like
it's not. That's the thing. It's not Devil May Cry. It's Souls.
Right. It's not like a perfect jigsaw puzzle pieces that fit together. Sometimes it's like there's a block, there's parries. It's kind of like it's puzzly in and of itself. Like it's not really about your DPS or like your whatever. It's more about like are you just like in a bad spot? Did they just have like they happen to have a bomb and you didn't? Like sometimes it's like preparation and the environment counts just as much. Like the combat's quick. It's real quick.
And, that's the great thing about it is that it's very responsive and it's very fast and twitchy, and it's not animation locked. So if you fail, it's because of you, and like it's crisp, man, and like the combat's good. It's not the best combat in the world. Sekiro's better,
right?
But it's real good. It's better than it's better than The Witcher.
Yeah,
it's better than
for sure. Yeah, I feel like it's almost like the Zelda games, I mean, are puzzle games that have like adventure as the theme, right? Like, I mean, it's puzzle in that like it's the way that the systems work together, not like literal puzzles also. But like, I feel like it's really scrappy for coming from the DNA of like the most polished version of those ever from Nintendo. So I feel like it's scrappy and it is a little bit muddy, like in very small amounts of like, okay, that was kind of a weird interaction, but it is true to its system.
Much more freeform, right? It's much more improvisational. It's much more open. And in that way, it often becomes messy and breaks down and it gets crazy.
Right.
But within that, if you use your tools right, it's like super powerful and you can be super effective, and there's a million different ways to do combat. And like I played through my first playthrough, I just never fucking used a shield. It was like I sort of did like my own kind of Nuzlocke and tried to make it harder.
It gives you those options from the beginning, which I like. And I like that the what's the point I was gonna say? What I like is that it's like button layout is very literal, and that it also like informs you like how they motivate the combat. Like the input to do a shield surf is literally the buttons that are block, the button that is jump, and the button that would then be the third thing to make those two go together. And I love that because it made more sense. Why I was like, man, the combat sometimes is like it feels too hard and then it feels too easy in like a 5-minute span.
Yeah, the only problem I have with the combat in those games is that the enemies aren't complex enough. I want more complex enemies. Like I want more Dark Souls style enemies that challenge me a little bit more.
Yeah.
But the actual core mechanics there's actually more going on than there is on your typical Dark Souls. Like you have more tools at your disposal for combat in Breath of the Wild than you ever do in Elden Ring. Like people are gonna blanch at that comment, but it's 100% true. Like you don't get to freeze time in Elden Ring if you time a dodge properly.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like your parry doesn't disarm people like it does in Breath of the Wild. Like you don't have the tablet that you can freeze people and you can all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of variety that you can do in Breath of the Wild that you can't do in Elden Ring. So I maintain Zelda has always had actually really good combat. I think people shit on it for no reason.
Yeah. The environment and the subsystems in the environment are part of the combat. And I think that's what trips people up is like, Zelda's always been kind of like about like the dungeons you're in as much as, Link and the enemies in it. And I feel like the physics engine is part of the reason why. Like it's very well done. It has like its little cartoony bits, but that's because it's actually better than trying to be too real. And that is part of the combat is some of those cartoony physics. And that's why like the speedrun tech alone is like demonstrates it the best. They do shit in there that's like, you can like Right, because you think of it and you're like, oh yeah, the ability that stops time, and it's like, well, think about that a little bit. If you were like 7 years old and someone told you could stop time in a video game, you'd use that shit all the time.
All the time,
but as an adult, you're like, okay, so this is like their ability that like gives me some leeway against this common like trope. It's like you're literally stopping fucking time, and the speedrun tech uses that. They were like, yeah, we just came up with the idea of what if we stasis an object and then somehow hit it enough times, like a machine gun, that you just go forward, right? It's like sometimes like taking a step back and looking at it from like the childlike wonder perspective is why it works.
It definitely moved the Legend of Zelda series forward, because it wasn't like the hook shot where it's got a specific purpose and you use it for this specific tool.
Yeah,
it's meant to be an available resource for you that you apply it in ways that you want to apply it in, by and large, which was really cool. And again, it leads into a combat system that's actually pretty well layered and interesting and can be complex. Again, the only thing that lets it down is the enemies that don't challenge it maybe as much as you might like. But even that, like I posted a video when that game first came out of like me parrying the 2 beams at the same time from the Guardians. I was fighting 2 Guardians at the same time, and I parried both of them at the same time with one shield parry. It was like fucking sick, man. Like, and that was skill based. You know, it wasn't like, you know.
Right, the parry is the timing window. It is the
yeah, and it's like if you get good enough, you can do flashy shit like that. And it's like the combat's actually good, man. Like you can have fun with that combat. It's not a burden. But anyway, I still
like tech stuff out. It's really ridiculous.
Yes, and like fighting the Lionels, like you can get good enough to where the Lionels are like.
Those might be my favorite fights.
Oh, 100%. I
avoided them for so long, and then when I finally did a red one, I was like, oh, this isn't. I mean, I have higher damage weapons, but I was like, mechanically, this isn't that bad. I just was too afraid to go fight one.
Like I go on Lionel runs where I'll just do a circuit of the entire map and just killing all the Lionels in one line. Like because like you can get good enough at the combat, and the combat is strong enough that it allows you to, like, if you're good enough, it will reward you for it. So, and the Lionels, there's like 8 different ways to like really strat them. And it's really enjoyable. So even with all that said though, I'd still like to see Sekiro inside Zelda. Because Sekiro is unmatched as far as I'm concerned.
Like the other direction of combat complexity, which is, actually like trying to focus on like timing and more I guess like more like traditionally skill-based stuff.
You know what I found actually about Sekiro, and the more I've done the modded playthrough of Elden Ring, the reason why modded Elden Ring is still not as good as Sekiro is because the enemies aren't designed to be that challenging in that way. Yeah. The enemies are actually what make the combat in Sekiro really rewarding, because it's the way they fight requires you to, you are advantaged by using the deflect. And the way they fight, they give you a lot of opportunity to do the deflect. Whereas if you use the Sekiro mechanics in Elden Ring, there are enemies that are like that, but then there's plenty of enemies that just don't do that. There's not opportunity to deflect them. They're magic-y, or they're giant monsters, or they do AoEs constantly. It's like that would not. Sekiro combat wouldn't work in that environment, which is maybe why they didn't, think about doing that in Elden Ring, but among other reasons probably. But I want Sekiro combat because it's more engaging. It's like it demands more of you. You are you have to be locked in. It's a test of your skill. So I want that in Zelda, and then give me the more RPG mechanics maybe in Zelda. Let me like take it different directions and like have my own Link build out, I want to be able to have like a heavy Link and a Dex Link, like that would be sick.
Dark Souls Zelda.
Yeah, I feel like they could do it if they keep like some of the DNA, not DNA, but like a Breath of the Wild, because like Breath of the Wild doesn't really have, it has like health, and you have like attack and defense, and that's kind of it. I feel like as long as they keep the stats, the start more on the simple side. I mean, obviously they're not going to do like 6 attributes or whatever.
Yeah, I think it can be weapon based, right? I think it can be loadout based even. Like it doesn't even need to be like a skill tree or like levels.
Right, no, it wouldn't be like passive points. It would be more of a like, it might not be directly attack. I mean, I guess they would do attack and defense, but I feel like it's probably going to be something more along the lines of like there's like 2 or 3 like stats or like concepts about your character, and they might not all seem like good replacements for like strength and defense or whatever, but it'll make sense more over time of like, do you want to be like games that have like mobility, intelligence or whatever. I'm trying to think of like weird stats because I'm thinking of like the physics
Arcane.
part. Yeah, arcane. Like the physics part of Zelda is what makes it so much less of like an RPG, or like if you get an attack upgrade, it's not like +2, it's like good sword, better sword, best sword.
Right.
Yeah. Like they're gonna need something. They're gonna want something like that would work like on a. It's got to be, I mean, accessible too. If it's coming from Nintendo, you know, it's got to be something that feasibly teenagers are able to play.
Well, right, yeah, and I don't mind the simplicity. Again, the simplicity of like Breath of the Wild's combat's real simple, but it's like still layered. It's still engaging. It's still challenging. It's still within your control. And like as long as they're hitting that, I'm happy with it. As long as the controls feel like if you jump into Breath of the Wild or Tears today after playing something like The Witcher or frankly even Elden Ring, I'm sorry, it's just a joy to control Link. It just feels real good to control him because he does what you tell him to do. You press a button, that shit comes out. You know, like it is. There's no delay. It does what you tell. He does what you tell him to do. Like he's nimble. He's quick. You know, that's why I play that game all the time because it just feels good to control Link. It feels like an extension of you. So, you know, that's why like even more so even than Sekiro. Frankly, it's just a more enjoyable character to control. So like if you could combine those two, man, open world Sekiro and Hyrule, you know, man, what more could you want?
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, I'd retire from gaming. I'd be like, no, I got what I want.
This is all I'm going to be doing for
my
the
one
rest
game.
of my life. I don't.
I mean, people sort of do that with Destiny. I mean, I don't think most people like admit to it, but I think it's kind of like a habit thing of like, yeah, it just becomes a thing that I play most of the time.
Yeah, which is what Breath of the Wild became to me. Breath of the Wild is definitely the game I've played more than any other game ever in my life. I've probably played, literally, 3,000 hours of that game.
I believe that. Yeah.
That's a hefty
do you find yourself like still picking it up like even like today, just like every couple of days? Really?
All the time.
Okay.
Because it has the same effect on me that Destiny does, which is it just feels so good to play. I'll drop in there for an hour, just fuck around, just play in the world, do some combat, and then drop out. Which is how I always play Destiny. So I'll do that with Breath of the Wild. I've done Breath of the Wild pillar to post, start to finish. On let's see, I've done it 6 times on the Switch, both in regular mode and master mode, in 2 different profiles. I've done it allegedly 3 times on the Steam Deck.
Allegedly.
That's what people say. I don't know if that's actually happened or not.
Yeah.
And I've done at least like 4 of those have been completionist runs. So I've done all of the
Koroks. Holy shit!
All
dude.
the Koroks, all 900 of the Koroks, like multiple times. So that's
My God.
believe me, I know that's some crazy shit, but that's how much I love that game. So
I'm glad you love something that much. Like that's great. I love that.
Yeah. It was the game of my lifetime. It was the game I'd always wanted Zelda to be. Like there are some drawbacks. It's not a perfect game by a long way, but you hear me criticize it on multiple different fronts, but it's just like I maintain it's the greatest game of all time. And my argument for that is because games are about being interactive. Like what separates a video game from a movie is its interactivity. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom max out that scale more than frankly any game I've ever played and ever imagined. Like a lot of games,
fuck, I can get a giant
you're interactive with.
Fuck, awesome.
Like you could say like Balatro, that's pretty interactive, right?
Yeah,
but like,
Balatro,
the ways in which you can be interactive, the way that you can organically live in that world and you do something and the game responds to it. So here's a good example. I was playing Tears the other day, just like 2 days ago, and I saw in my inventory I had this shield that had one of those reflector lamps attached to it, you know, that you sometimes use in the puzzles in that game. Mm-hmm. That if you put it in a ray of light, it will shine onto a spot and that will open a door or something in a dungeon. So I had a shield that had that attached to it, and I'm sure a year ago I had that for a reason, like I was using that in like a dungeon or something. But I didn't have any shields left, so I whipped that out. And I was just going to use that. I was going to use it until it broke. Well, I put my shield up against this enemy, and it blinded the enemy and it staggered him.
I love
And I
how
was
like
I had not, and I had never seen that before, and I didn't do it intentionally, but like clearly there's a chemistry system in there and there's a physics system in there that you can play around with, and everything that you input into that game, there is an output. There is a response. There's an input and there's a response. That game reacts to everything that you do.
it has
And
the
so
best elements of like the immersive sims of like the subsystems are
exactly,
so
it's
deep that people are
absolutely
finding shit like, oh, 10
yes.
years passes and you're like, you could do this, and they're like, no.
Yeah, it is the immersive sim of immersive sims. It's the most wide open-ended immersive sim, and it everything that you do, the game responds to what you do. It's not like Elden Ring, where you know what it's like. I often feel like in things like Elden Ring or Witcher, that your only vector for actually interacting with the world is hitting shit with your weapon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other than that, it's reading text and going through menus. That's most of your interactivity in those games.
Right.
That's not to say that that's bad, but if you're talking about interactivity, you can manipulate the world in Tears of the Kingdom. You can actually pick shit up and move it around with your hands. Anything, just about anything in that game, you can pick it up and move it around and throw it. And, like that to me is like, that's the essence of interactivity. And Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did that better than any video game I've ever come across, ever seen. And like, to me, that means that in a medium where interactivity is king, that makes it the greatest thing in that medium of all time.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion there.
It's funny you mentioned the interactivity part, because there's an essay someone wrote, I want to say a couple of years ago, that was about like why is like fighting such a big like thing in many video games?
Yeah.
But also in a subset of that is also like, why do we use hit points and like mana? Like, why do we always have hit points, or like what's the point of it? And the answer for both of those things is like, well, because not just because they work, but because it is a very recognizable and accessible form of interactivity. Like people understand fighting,
it's how you touch the world that you're playing virtually, right?
Like sports games obviously have their own like version of that, or like racing games, but like every other type of game, like, well, fighting is usually the default thing, and like a lot of people like the stylishness of it. But also like it's just HP and like, attack, defense, variations of that thing work, and that's why so many games have them. Which I agree with. I think it's not even like worrying about it being cliche. It's more of like, well, that's also the inverse of this is the point I'm getting to, which is novelty or innovation in interactivity is what makes like those types of games like shine, right? Like Rocket League, it's racing, but it's also soccer, and that in and of itself, it's tricky, but it's cool and it's fun, and it's also like you can laugh while playing it. Same thing with Untitled Goose Game. There's no fighting in Untitled Goose Game per se. People love it because it's like, well, what all can I do? It's like, well, you can flap your wings, you can honk, you can duck under stuff, you can do everything a goose can do, and there's no combat in that game.
It's like, what do people do when they see a new game that's announced? What do they really want to see? They want to see gameplay, right? They hate
They want to see what's the interactivity. Yeah.
And why? And what is that question that they're asking when they say that? What they're really asking is, well, what do you do in the game? What do you do?
Right. What is the main thing that I'm doing? Yeah.
Yeah. What am I doing? And in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, what are you doing? You're doing infinity things, like everything. You're like, there's infinity things to do in that game, and it's endless. And it's like that to me that's kind of like what they had advertised Fable was going to be when it was first being delivered. Like, and why people were disappointed.
Well, anything that guy always says. Molyneux, my God. Talk about overpromising everything you've ever done.
Yeah, and then Breath of the Wild finally comes along like 10, 15 years later and is like, hey, this like interactivity where you can really do whatever your imagination's like is inspired to do. Like you can like literally do it.
The only thing that Breath of the Wild has to do to become everything that Fable promised is to turn off blood moons.
Okay.
That is the only thing that they have to do, because blood moons are basically the reason for the reset, right? So you always have combat no matter what. Yeah. Right? But it also, I think it also like resets like all the trees you've chopped down and all the
it resets the whole world,
Yeah, it resets the whole world. So yeah, that other than that though, like
your impact is not permanent, right?
You have Fable. Yeah.
Yep.
You just turned that off and didn't ever have a blood moon again.
Yeah, I remember when they announced Fable and all the like hype leading into it. That sounded to me like uber video game. That was like video game taken to the absolute ultimate realization of what video games were always meant to be. And obviously did not quite deliver on that. But Breath of the Wild is about as close to that as I think you can get without like virtual
Minus the
reality
morality
and actually
system.
living in the world.
Right.
Yeah, basically without some of the RPG like layers on top of it. But other than that, like it's like it's just pure interactivity that you can do on your own, and the game is talking back to you in a way that other games don't. Other games feel a little bit numb that way, like you can touch certain things and can't touch other things. There's invisible walls, like it feels like a limited universe. Like you can't jump through a specific area even though you can clearly fit through there, that kind of thing. Like you would think like I've got this shield with this reflector on it. It would be cool if I could like it's like the ultimate RPG in that way, like what you would do in a D&D campaign. Like
I was going to say the only game I can think of that does it maybe better, maybe not as like
Baldur's
dynamically, but Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, and the only reason the only reason Baldur's Gate scores lower on that interactivity scale for me is because it's turn-based. Because it's still that sort of serialized system where it is back and forth. Whereas, of course, obviously,
it's combat,
Breath of the Wild, in Breath of the Wild, of course, it has the advantage of being a 3D open world action adventure where you get complete and utter control over your character. You get to be the author of your own story all the time. Everything that you do. That's the reason why I don't care about story in games, because I want my video games to be the story I tell, not the story that's being told to me. That's because it's interactivity. I want to be proactive. It's the question of what do you do? What am I doing? Not what am I hearing, not what am I seeing. It's what am I doing? What am I doing? That's why I think Breath of the Wild is the greatest game of all time. That's why I think it's my favorite game of all time. And I don't see any other game like doing that better, for me at least, anytime soon, despite all of its shortcomings. And there are plenty in those games, but it's like, yeah, it's too good, too fucking good. So I think you guys should go back and play Tears when you have time.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it percolating in the back of my head. That's usually how I know I'm gearing up to do another like project game.
I think you should. I think you'd be into the story. I think the story is actually really good.
I'm totally into the story. Don't get me wrong.
Like the Zelda storyline is really sick in that game.
Yeah, I'm all in because like having Ganondorf come back. Spoiler alert, I guess. Having Ganondorf back and not just like Ganon or even Calamity Ganon.
Ganon and Ganondorf in the Zelda game. Spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. That has me intrigued to no end. I'm just like, okay, what's up? And like, I know they're not technically in the same canon anymore, but that's fine. I don't need them to be. Maybe they will be again one day. I don't know.
Well, I think the monomyth now is the new thing. At least for people that are like kind of over. Now it's more about how they do the monomyth.
Yeah, I'd respect them more if they said, yeah, maybe next.
There's more places to go, I think, in those tunnels too.
Oh, is there? Okay, maybe I'll go back to the tunnels then. Oh, I gotta go back up the hill though. But anyway, yeah. Fuck, what was I saying?
Zelda.
Zelda cool, Ganondorf.
The Ganondorf timeline stuff.
Yeah.
I think Ganondorf as a character has some potential. Spoiler alerts for I guess some Zelda timeline shit. But oh shit, I can go across.
Ganondorf in Tears is really good.
Yeah,
good character.
Well, it's like he's this. If you spoiler alert for Skyward Sword, if you don't know, he is a reincarnation of Demise. And I feel like he didn't really have a say in who he was. And
I always thought Aghanim was a good villain.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I always think of him as the Palpatine to the Darth Vader that is Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same guy.
Well, I mean, yeah. Just like Aghanim in the comic anyway, they show him as like the fucking caster sorcerer dude.
Yeah, I really didn't think that was.
Cut of all these.
I didn't think that was really gonna kill me. I thought it might hurt, but I didn't think it was gonna kill me outright. Whatever.
Yeah, we need a super cut of all these in this episode.
I was when you were climbing up on that like sliver of a ledge. I was kind of surprised. I thought you were gonna fall right there.
Right. No. I just think there's some more like character development for Ganondorf, because it's just like, I don't know. There's a really cool background there. It's like the people he comes from is cool.
He's got a little bit of
the biology involved is cool. He's like the only dude for the he's only ever one of like a male one for 100 years.
He's got a little bit of Anakin in him.
A little bit.
Yeah, he does.
I think it's kind of inverse Anakin, where Anakin is just flawed enough to be a villain. I think he's got just enough honor in him to potentially be like an anti-hero, maybe.
Yeah. He's like a tragic. He could be a tragic hero. He's almost redeemable. You kind of almost want to root for him, even though he's real bad.
Yeah. I'm already okay on that.
He's rendered really well in Tears of the Kingdom, like the way like it's really good character. And man, the cutscenes, the artwork in that fucking game, Jesus Christ, what a game! What a game!
Yeah. I like the memory or the tears that I've like found so far. I know Cameron was talking about the story after having played it on stream. I do think it has like for me anyway, like it is. I know there's stuff that I haven't seen yet in the story, but I know like one of like the bigger things. I don't know if it's technically a reveal that happens, but it is still like, I think it's not going to be like as deep as like, putting together all the lore pieces for a Dark Souls game. But I think what they're doing. The way that these like this and Majora's Mask changes up the formula a little bit, I think is still good.
It does, yeah.
I think there's like still elements of it where I'm like, okay, it's you're kind of taking it as its own type of hero's journey, but I mean that is also the point of the Zelda games, is like the monomyth is the specific like hero's journey of the power, wisdom, and courage trio in different forms. And I think that works still pretty well. Like it has to be accessible for kids, obviously, but I know that there was some gripes about the story in like small ways, and I kind of agree. It still doesn't like super engage me, but like I'm not like, it's not like bad or anything to the point where I'm like, oh, I gotta watch more cutscene. No, I'm like, I do want to watch the cutscenes. Like I do want to. It's enthralling enough that I want to see what happens. It might not be as gripping as like what I was getting out of Breath of the Wild the first time, but I think that's the effect of.
I mean, it's not
the game, not the.
It's not
the novelty.
Abyss Walker Artorias level. Like it's not.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, man. Like the highs, like the cinematic parts of it. Like I'm not going to spoil anything because I think you guys probably aren't there yet. But like
only maybe a quarter of the way through.
The Master Sword quest, like.
I haven't even done that yet. Yeah.
That's one of the highest points in the history of Zelda to me, man. That's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Even though the Master Sword itself in these games is really underwhelming. Apart from that,
it's pretty cool.
The lore behind it is cool, and how it's woven into the actual overarching narrative is actually, at least from a lore perspective, it makes it really important. And it's such a new take on the old tropes of how you get the sword and like, its story, how it makes its way to you, and like what it means to the story, and like why it's important to Link, and like all that shit. It's like it features far more prominently in the story than it ever really has before, and it's more important that way. It's one of the reasons why I wish they made it more important and integral to the gameplay. I wish they did that a little bit more, but in any event, like there's just a lot of good stuff to be, gotten out of that game. I do think. I'm not one of those people who's like, Baldur's Gate should not have won Game of the Year. Like, nah. Baldur's Gate is like totally deserves Game of the Year. Like,
for what it did for that game. Having not played any of the first two, I think it does. It deserves at least credit. It deserves to be in the conversation at least.
Totally. It's not a game for me. Like, I'll never play it. I'll never want to play it. But I'm not going to be over here like, oh, it's the shitty game. No, it deserved Game of the Year. I'm not going to say it didn't. I will say though, I think people discounted Tears of the Kingdom, frankly, by recency bias.
Yeah.
And people were complaining that, like by the end of the year, they were like justifying not voting for Tears of the Kingdom because it's like, it was just like Breath of the Wild. It's like, nah, man, go back to when that game was released and people's minds were getting fucking blown.
The vehicle stuff was still like
TikTok was nothing. Yeah, TikTok was nothing but Tears of the Kingdom for weeks and weeks and weeks.
And people knew it was going to be a Majora's Mask thing. At least, people who were paying attention. Like, again, like the people who, read the fucking, well, I guess there's not a Steam page, but you get the idea. Like, people who understand what it is. Like, we knew it was going to be more like Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild type stuff.
Well, you even
The
said, like,
vehicle
please
stuff
do
alone.
another one of these. Like,
Right.
Yeah,
it
they
seems by
did.
request. And plus,
and
like,
people
you don't
also
build
were
an engine
saying,
like that.
and if you remember, Breath of the Wild when it
Yeah.
came out was was basically an Ocarina of Time moment. It was one of the greatest games of all time. It was by acclamation, like everybody was giving it 10 out of 10. There was nobody saying it was a bad game. Nobody saying it wasn't.
It
10.
literally, I would say, both Baldur's Gate and Breath of the Wild are pivotal games that allowed us to know for sure that you actually can do it all.
Yeah,
Like, you don't
exactly.
have to trade. You
Like,
don't have to trade off. I mean, and
a
if you can
greatest
make it,
a
change
literal
your definition
greatest of all time candidate. Like just a like sort of end of history kind of video game where it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't really need to get better than this.
yeah,
And then
like, it's not perfect in everything, but it is great. It's pretty damn
it's a
good in just about
absolute
everything.
masterpiece. And I only say that as context because people, if you also recall, like remember how great Breath of the Wild was and how acclaimed it was. When Tears of the Kingdom came out, universally everyone was like, "This is better." Like,
Yeah,
they're like,
and
"This
I
is
still
better
feel that
than
way.
what a lot of people consider to be the greatest game of all time." It's better than that, and people were losing their shit over that game. And then by the end of the year, it was like, well, it was just like Breath of the Wild, so like, why vote for it again? It's like, nah, man, that's not what you guys were saying at the time. So anyway, I don't know how close it was in the voting for Game of the Year and the Game Awards to Baldur's Gate. Probably not very. I think Baldur's Gate kind of ran away with it. And again, Baldur's Gate deserves it. Not saying Baldur's Gate shouldn't have won, but like, I just feel like Tears of the Kingdom just got a little bit ignored at the end of the year and it wasn't really fair.
Yeah.
I think it should have gotten a little more flowers.
I think part of it is like there is this sort of weird sweet spot in terms of like the voting thing.
Oh
not
shit,
that
he got a big ass hammer. What?
Is
I like
this
how
the
the
fucking
versions is-
weapon? I remember when this came out, I saw this weapon and I was like, I want this so bad because it looks
hammer
funny
mace.
as hell. This was the
It
clip I
does
saw.
Jeez.
This is
You
a
shot
comedy
my
weapon.
horse?
Yeah, this is my favorite. I love the comedy weapons in this game. This is another game that does that really well. It's like serious
just-
most of the time, but every now and then, don't you just want a giant pizza cutter?
Prosperous stuff. Yeah.
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 I saw that
love-
big clip of the dude throwing this at Gideon's head on a replay, and I was like, "Yep, I gotta get it."
Yeah, it's just an anvil on the end of a stick, and then it turns into this like flying mace. Like,
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh hey, he's a
so this guy is what, a hippo?
Damn
Is that
it.
the hippo?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a hippo or some big old land mammal anyway.
Is there are other versions of him that
Well,
he
it's got
turns into a
toes,
dragon?
and that doesn't look quite right.
Because like he turns into a dragon. The other version's him, right? He's got
Oh,
that.
I
tail.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Or
a
at least
druid.
it's various animal like weapons and natural weapons. Each one of these, I think they're like the old guard from even before America. If I remember their lore correctly, these guys are kind of like back before America made a lot of allies and then just slowly systematically started like peeling away one culture at a time until only hers remained. And these guys
Well, that's
are
what
kind
Shadow
of
of the
like
Erdtree is, right? I mean, Shadow of the Erdtree is basically a prequel, or at least like an alternate. past.
Well, it's like the I mean, I don't know, but for sure because I haven't done it all. But it seems like these are just like the home of the losers, like everybody who's been discarded, the recycling bin.
It's the island of misfit toys.
Yeah.
God damn it! I
Oh,
keep dodging.
does
I
feel
keep
that way.
dodging into the swing. Or with
What's the name
swing,
of that?
really.
King
Yeah, the island of misfit
Stargazer?
toys.
King Stargazer, is that his name?
Stargate?
Oh shit! The king of the island of misfit toys.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think it's Stargazer, something like
shit,
that. Something
maybe.
Gazer.
Remember. Island of Misfit Toys is a Pinocchio thing, right?
No, that's
I'm
a
a-
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer claymation.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking
You
of
guys gonna
yeah.
get me looking this shit up.
That's what I'm doing. I want to figure out what this is. I get all of these confused. Is this the one with the elf who wants to be a dentist?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
that's her.
Correct.
So there's a couple movies by this
Oh, it's
stop motion thing,
something
right?
Razor, right?
Star Razor.
This is gonna. I'm gonna have to figure this out.
This guy is something else. He is so fucking beefy.
The Toy Maker? There's Toy Maker.
He's the king. He's the Moon Racer.
That's rad.
Moon
Moonraker.
Racer.
It sounds like the
Yes.
Moonraker laser.
That's actually even a cooler fucking name.
Yeah.
How is it that like in the middle of this nerdy claymation holiday special, did they come up with the name fucking Moonracer? King
No.
Moonracer.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in this? What the fuck?
She's
What?
like Hollywood royalty.
She's one of the voices in this.
In
I did
what?
not know that.
Yeah, he's not a hippo. He's got like 6 limbs.
Rick Moranis,
In
I'm not
Rudolph?
surprised about. Yeah, apparently, yeah. Voice cast includes Jamie Lee Curtis.
No fucking way.
I did not know that.
You know what? She's probably his
She's
girlfriend.
Queen Camilla, apparently.
Oh, she's Queen Camilla. Okay.
I
What the
feel like I
fuck?
can
Oh,
hear
he's got
that.
plant powers too? That's cool.
I did not know that.
Dude, Druid Knights.
Richard Dreyfuss is in this.
I think you're looking at a different version.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh no!
Well, I
sorry,
mean,
yeah, this is
there's-
2001. Okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. I thought this
Yeah,
was a
had to be.
different thing. Why? Oh, well, that's Google for you. I looked up Island of Misfit Toys, and the first result, like that overview, is for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, 2001
Yeah. Nope.
musical adventure. But all the images that are coming up are the old, what is it,
Good
80s?
Before that, it must have been
Or
60s. I think,
70s?
probably.
Or 60s? Oh, yeah, shit.
Let's see.
Yeah, you're right.
Fuck. Man, that hit
Yeah.
hard.
1964.
Ah, that makes more sense, yeah.
I didn't even land on the moon yet.
2001.
JFK died a year before.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Jeez,
Oh!
come on.
Dude, flattened.
Oh my god,
Sure.
this guy takes for
Sure.
fucking ever. Okay. Maybe this is what we're doing the rest of the
Scott
next
Ezzies.
12 minutes.
He's got Hezzies.
All right. I'm going to switch this
King
up a little bit.
Moonracer. Moonracer's sick. That's going to be my new screen name.
That
I'm
is
gonna
so...
change it.
That's
Moon
like,
Racer.
yeah, that's
It makes
so
me think of the Moonraker
Greek
laser.
Druid. Yeah. Moonracer. Okay, I do have that.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was Moonraker or something. I don't know. I guess
That's
was...
the
That's James
laser
Bond.
from
Yeah,
GoldenEye.
yeah.
One of the maybe still one of my favorite FPS weapons of all time.
Right.
Such a solid laser. I don't think it had any ammo, did it?
No, it had infinite ammo. One of the few that did.
Yeah.
Moonracer. All right. That's my new alter ego.
It's your next
Moonracer.
D&D character name.
Fuck yes. I do think about that sometimes, what my character name should be, even though I have no idea what the character is.
Oh, yeah, no. I've
think
been
of
doing...
names.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've been doing this thing where I try and, like, I don't work with mechanics first. I work with concept first, and then try and reverse engineer it.
Yeah,
With
that's probably how I would have to do it because I don't know all the mechanics. So
yeah. Ooh.
this is a cool battle. This like cool, like very dexterous weapon, very elegant against this entirely preposterous like anvil weapon. Very cool. Like especially the way that you're doing that, like that special.
Yeah.
I imagine this is like sort of how the Radon versus Melania fight went.
Yeah, probably.
Got him.
Okay, finally. That's what I
There it
used.
is.
Okay.
His hammer.
Oh, cool. Fucking hammer. Got that. Okay, cool.
Ooh, nice.
I couldn't remember what my
Cool looking heavy armor.
my equipment was. It was the thing that does the... If you hold it, you get more powerful... you get a more powerful heavy, I think. What was that?
Oh yes, it was Relania, I think. Relana.
Oh yeah, Rolana.
It was
which
the
one
dual
was-
sword lady.
Yeah. Fuck, which one was that? It was...
There it is, right there to the left. That's it.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Relana's cameo.
I liked her fight. I had trouble with it, but I liked it a lot.
I like it too.
That was
Yeah, it's a
cool
good.
I
ass
remember that
fight,
one.
man.
Yeah.
It's a good sword fight, right? It's actually really good for the Sekiro mod because it's just too like
Yeah.
humanoid.
I've been in here the last of the flesh of my body. Ooh, getting towards the end.
Fragment. Got enough to level?
Ancient Ruin cross message. Okay. By Dryleaf Dane. Address to kindred spirits who also pursue Michaela's trail. We found the sealing tree just ahead, but if we are to
Sealing
burn it,
tree.
we need the proper kindling. That of Sir Mesmer. Oh shit. Okay, so Mesmer's got to burn for this
Ooh.
thing to happen. Well, I got it. I already kind of did that.
Gotta let it burn. Gotta let it burn. Gotta let it burn. Anybody in the internet who knows who that is, you get extra points for today.
Get extra credit.
Extra credit.
Seek precious item.
Down here at the pawn shop.
All right, I'm gonna.
We gonna get claimed for that?
Yeah. If you sing it
Oh,
any
so
better than
perfect.
that.
Oh, perfect.
All right, cool. I have just enough. Cool. Excellent. All right. That looks like a cool place. If only I had a pickle. Okay, across the bridge, but I feel like there's more going on back here, too. Yeah, there's so much else going on back here. There is a little thing going on between the two of the knights that are back in the Shadow Keep. I found Sir Ends back or whatever, and I had the option to tell him about the other knight, and I don't... I get the fucking sweet-ass cycle kick.
Riley Forward? That's interesting.
That's radical! Ugh!
You know, you haven't gotten like the monk build going this whole time. I thought you wanted to do like the monk build.
I haven't found weapons that are like...
Maybe that's what we got to do next time. We got to
inspiring.
target getting you a... Yeah. That's what we need. We need to get you a kung fu build going.
I mean, I would always play a monk. I've got a couple of different monk builds for...
I just feel like you would get...
now.
Feel like you get real cranked up for that. I want to see you like
fuck
get
yeah,
into
dude.
it.
Oh yeah, I'm all in on a monk build. I just don't know of any good like.
We'll find it. We'll target weapons in the next one. You got to find the right weapon, and then you can start building into that. That might solve my problem of dealing with your fucking Smorgas build. Because I think if you get that weapon that you are like, oh my god, this is it for me, you might actually finally respec and build a proper character. That would be great.
If it's any consolation, I did decide I wanna up my intelligence because there's some cool glint blade stuff that I want to do.
I mean, dog, I've been waiting for you to up your intelligence for 30 years, so you know,
Damn.
I'm all for that.
Oh shit, that guy's about to shoot me.
You better watch
What
the fuck out. This is
the
gonna zero
fuck?
you out in one hit. You better be careful.
What is happening?
You know
What's
what
that guy
is.
gonna do? Yeah, but like, oh man.
Oh, this guy, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them.
He reminds me
You
of
wanna
that
be
thing at
careful
the
here.
children's museum. Like you throw the balls in the top of it.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's specifically yeah. He just looks like you're supposed to like the elephant. You're supposed to just like toss something into him.
Right. Butterflies everywhere. Watch them go.
I just remember that.
These
I
are
don't
cool
know.
characters. I like the design of these characters. These guys are cool.
They're like giant wicker
The
man,
humans?
right?
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
Oh,
shit,
I told you, man. I
motherfucker.
told you you're gonna get zeroed out.
So that's why he has the fire in his
Lucky
head.
to be alive, man.
Is it like the fire giant fire?
Yeah, but these guys are the beefiest motherfuckers, man.
Oh, fuck,
my God.
Okay. I gotta
Meteor.
get closer.
Meteor attack.
Oh no,
I don't
I
know if
can't.
he's angry
Okay.
or is he just?
You can.
Ah!
Yep.
Oh,
Really, what you're supposed to do here is actually get on your horse and run across that
Oh,
bridge.
yeah.
before you get stupid.
I'm saying like they have like bullet drops, sort of, but they're also sort
Yeah.
of seeking. It's really weird.
But you know, don't forget who's playing here, who's on the sticks. Like he's not gonna do what he's supposed to do. Obviously, he's not gonna encourage him to do what he's
Obviously,
Nothing makes me happier.
you can't just like reverse psychology him into doing it.
But I mean, you know, if he ups his int, I'm gonna be a happy man.
But yeah, is that the? I forget what your build is here, Nate. Are you still going for like a spell sword?
Yeah,
type
answer that
of-
question, Nate.
Yeah, I
what's your
just
build?
sort of switched the flavors of Kool-Aid, I think. Yeah.
Smorgas build. That's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I
Everything,
started that in
all at
3.
once. Everything,
Yes.
everywhere, all at once. That's his
Everything,
plan.
Good
I mean,
movie.
hey, seen work for that movie.
Yeah.
Is there anything else back here? I guess it's not. Okay, cool.
You
Must
need
be
to
just
use
like
your
a.
lantern more often.
I need to do my what?
You need to use your lantern more often.
Nah.
Oh
It's
yeah,
fine. It's fine.
that's lantern in this was essential for me going into caves. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to have that shit.
Yeah, I do use
Yeah.
that.
I use it in the
today.
sewers a lot.
There he is.
Yeah. Switch over to a bigger sword.
Ooh,
a heftier
We're
sword.
getting chunky, boys.
Oh yeah. When you were talking about the Nintendo stuff, it got me thinking about. I was watching my usual GDQ last week, and there were a couple of good Elden Ring runs this year.
Yeah.
There was a DLC Lockout Bingo, which is really interesting.
Fuck is that?
So so they're doing a little bit like they still do speedrun stuff, but they're trying to do like more entertaining, like interesting ideas. Like they do like Zelda randomizers.
Sorry to interrupt, but are you seeing these bodies roped to this guy, tied to this guy? These torched bodies on his feet.
I was gonna say something about that like a couple months ago. I was like, yeah, what's with the corpses?
That is properly fucked up. Okay, sorry, never mind. This is real.
No, you're fine. I mean, that's a really cool bit of detail. Actually, I didn't know that.
Sorry, proceed. GDQ.
Yeah, so GDQ had some really cool Elden Ring runs. So the DLC Lockout Bingo is like it's a speed run, but it's not just like a beat the game. It's a they designed a bingo board, a 5x5 board that has a bunch of objectives on it, like kill the fire giant or collect 3 pieces of this one thing. All things that are like actually fairly like hard objectives. And they do this race seed thing where they just let 2 runners loose, and they try to play. Right, yeah, they do it as a race because they're trying to get bingo, where either they get 5 objectives like in a row across the board, or if bingo becomes impossible, just whoever has more squares or more objectives completed than the other one. And they did it with just the DLC, which I thought was really cool.
This is like stupidly high level gaming. Like,
oh, it is. Yeah, I mean it's high level and that like it doesn't look like it when you're watching it, but it's just about the planning that goes in ahead of time. Like this is the kind of thing where it's like if everybody was playing golf and everyone was like, so we're all going to agree that on this hole this is the fastest thing to do, even though Steve's going to do this other kind of slower thing, and then a year from now they're like, actually Steve was right, we're going to do that again. It's very like meticulous planning, and then the execution is the hard part, but it is also very like it's not just like following instructions when you're doing the races or like the randomizers. It's a little bit more of like, okay, you know how this game works inside and out. What hacking sort of with the controller tech can you do to make that possible?
Of all the games that you've played in your life, which one do you think you would be the closest to being like a real world-class speedrunner? Like what's the game that you're the best at? Like where have you done the best?
It's probably a short list for me. I'm trying to think
if there's
of
a video game Olympics and you have to participate, what event would you want to participate in? Which event would you be most likely, or at least least likely to fail in?
There was a brief period for a couple of years where I was the best in my friend groups at racing games, but that is not true anymore.
If I were to guess for you,
damn it,
I always saw you as like really fucking good at shit. What was we just talked about it before. Help me. Car game, soccer.
Oh, Rocket League.
Rocket League. Yeah, you are a Rocket League guy, man.
Rocket League, maybe. True. Rocket League's skill ceiling has gotten a lot higher. Rocket League is one of those.
Really?
Well, it's like I was good at it like for a bit in the first year or two it came out.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those games where like it has a weird skill cap of like the most fun people have playing that game is just like trying to figure out how it works. And then like once you're able to at least like drive around for the most part, it kind of like opens up. But like the that is still the same, but like the ceiling is fucking huge now. Like I actually watched a showcase at GDQ, of like people who like understand how that like works. Like being able to fly, I think is just like it is like the biggest skill. But I feel like Rocket League is something that I would be a contender for, especially like the further back in time you go. But I feel like now that
meta has
it sinks a little bit every year. Yeah,
I wonder if you'd be interested in Sifu. FIFU, I guess. Have you seen that?
I've seen Sifu. I haven't actually. I know it has something to do with like every time you die, you age or something.
So this is actually one of the games that I wanted to propose to you, Nate, for Woeful Wednesdays, because it's definitely a challenging game. But it's Sifu. It's a kung fu game. Basically, it's hand-to-hand combat, but really complex and like super. It's almost Sekiro-like in that way. But that team just announced a new game, and it's basically FIFU. It's soccer. It's basically a human version. Yeah, it's a human version of Rocket League.
Yeah.
So, what the fuck?
Yeah, and it's made by the Sifu guys. Yeah. Well,
That's
this is the thing.
fantastic.
So if you think about like FIFA, it's not traditional FIFA where you're like you're playing as the whole team, like you're passing the ball to other people, like you're
Yeah.
controlling the team.
You're like
It's
hyper athletic, high
it's
speed.
third person perspective. So
That's
you're
cool.
like much like Rocket League. So you are one player on the field, and you are going around the field. It's like 3-on-3 soccer, I think. And it's like it looks kind of amazing. Like it looks crazy. Plus, it's the Sifu guys who also did
All right, one more
Absolver.
try.
Did you ever see Absolver?
Oh, I remember
It's
Absolver a little bit.
that other
Yeah.
like really technical kung fu fighting game.
Yeah.
Is everybody doing
I always
it?
thought it's the same people, it's the same team. I always thought there was a game
I
that
got
you would
that.
like, Nate. So I think you should do. I think you should play Sifu. I think you would like that.
I would check it out. Yeah, that sounds cool.
It's
I
one
think,
that like I
Tom, you
saw that I do.
I think you
It's one of
should
those
play
like
FIFA.
FIFA. Yeah, I mean FIFA. I mean, it sounds good. It sounds like the kind of thing I would want to play.
Tom, I would love it if Nate became like one of the greatest players ever in Sifu, and Tom became one of the greatest players ever in FIFA. That would be sick.
Yeah. We wouldn't be variety streamers anymore. It would just be those two things back to back
It's
every
just like
day.
those two games could not be more perfect for
Jesus.
either one of you. Like they're like right in your wheelhouse.
I remember I did think of Nate when I was looking at Sifu whenever that came out. Like I think it was 2 years ago at this point.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It looks interesting. It looks like the kind of game like I like. It's like if you're gonna do fighting in video games, which is 90% of games, I feel like the best thing you can do to stand out is either fighting, which is what like roguelikes and some other like game types do. But I also like the idea of it's mostly just fighting, but it's either like it's really in depth in a really weird way.
Which is
And I
what
think Sifu
is, and
right.
Absolver was that way too. It's just really, really
Right.
in-depth systems.
I like the idea of it being a game that like more focuses on the actual like the tacticalness and strategy of like hand-to-hand combat, because like a lot of fighting games, no one would pay attention to it if it was that way all the time, but like it's cool to see here's what fighting is actually like from a practical real world standpoint.
I'm actually really surprised, Nate, that you've never played those games, either Absolver or Sifu. Like I always thought like that would be the game.
I think it would be.
That would be like your end game.
I mean, I don't. There's plenty of games out there that I just haven't gotten to.
Yeah.
Like I know they exist, but I haven't even gotten around to looking at them yet.
I think Sifu didn't really have a lot of. It was big in like circles if you were like on Steam a lot, or if you're in somewhere where you're looking at like new games. Sifu was definitely like it got a lot of attention, but I feel like it didn't get advertised. It was mostly word of mouth.
It's also, strictly speaking, it's pretty niche, right? I mean, it's like the systems though are really cool, like the aging system, the way that because it's almost. It's got elements of roguelite to it, the way that it's like you do it with runs and you try and get as far as you can at the lowest possible age. So the systems are actually really interesting, but the fighting mechanics are probably, from a hand-to-hand, like close quarters combat kind of thing, is probably the best there's ever been in video games, I would imagine. Really cool to watch, super stylish, kind of a pretty cool story, like a quest story that you're on. I feel like, Nate, if we could get you to play that game here, like that would be. I feel like that would open your eyes. I think you would love that game.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
I give it
For
a
sure.
shot.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
Look at some
So
gameplay, and I'll
here's the interesting rub of it, Nate. Not just the fact that it's like more. It is like way more like martial arts actually focused. So it does care about like positioning. Set in China, players control the child of a martial arts school's I think we're saying that Sifu.
It's just it means master.
Right, that's kind of what I figured. Yeah. Seek revenge on those responsible for their father's death. Every time the protagonist dies, they are resurrected by a magical talisman and age up, gaining access to more powerful attacks but reducing their health.
Yeah.
When the player becomes too old, they can die permanently, in which case players must restart the level from the beginning and from the same age as their initial attempt.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's cool. Yeah.
It's one of those games where your skill can get so good. But it's actually a lot like Sekiro in that way. So you level up as you go along. You get so good that by the time you get to the end game, you are dominant. Like you are unbeatable. You are so powerful, even though your actual character in game isn't like super like crazy powerful. You just know the systems and the timing so well, and all the enemies so well. Like you just are a machine.
So
which is like you can. It's kind of what happens to you in Sekiro. Like by the time you get to the end game, it's actually the game gets easier
He just
because you
one-shotted
get so
me.
much
God
better.
damn it. Okay.
Yeah, man, he just smashed you in the
He
ground,
just
didn't he?
straight up one-shotted me from like
Yeah.
basically full health. God damn.
I don't
I
know.
was
You're gonna
really
beat this
hoping
guy?
to. Nah, I think we're gonna call it. I
Oh
want
man.
to, but it's
I mean, he's not going
yeah, I didn't
anywhere.
realize
It's
it's
9 o'clock for you
Yeah.
guys in real world time.
In real world time, yeah, human
Yeah.
time. He's
Yeah,
not going
I'll
anywhere.
have to check out Sifu because it sounds cool. It sounds like if if you level up, the game will level you up, or like
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
either you will level up as a player and or the game will level you up to get you there.
yeah. It's exactly what it is. Like that's the roguelite element where you will, even if you fail, you'll get stuff that levels up your character, and you'll get new moves, and you'll become more powerful regardless. So if you spend enough time with it, you'll kind of inevitably beat the game just by
Yeah,
virtue of your character
it's just a
spending enough
matter of
time in the
like
world. They power up enough.
where is your
But
slider on the scale when you do.
yeah, but before that, like you're gonna just get better at the game, and by the time you get to the end, like the but most players by the time they beat the game, they're ready to go in and do the final trophy, which is basically the one of the trophies in the game is beating it without ever dying and beating it with the absolute youngest possible age. Which like when you first go into that game, it's like there's no fucking way I'll ever be able to do that. And then by the time you get to the end, it's like, yeah, man, I can do this over and over again. That's
Oh,
how
okay.
good you get. Yeah. So anyway, that's an idea. I think that would be cool.
Gotcha. Okay.
You gotta hurry up and
I'll
beat
take a
Elden
look
Ring.
at some
We got more
gameplay.
games to play. Though.
Yeah, I know this thing. Like, I want to keep playing, but at the same time, I don't want to make any forward progress without you guys. So, it's just I can
Well, we're
only go
getting close
2
to the
hours at
end
a
here.
time. Yeah, 2 hours at a time,
We
approximately.
are making progress. We're getting closer to the end here. So
Yeah, I know there's at least two. I know there's at least 2 more bosses because I can see the
There's-
thumbnails for Vati's Prepare to Cry for Bale and I guess
Yes.
Rao. The guy.
Yes, you've
I know
not
I'm in
done-
the era for that guy.
there's a handful of bosses that you have not done. Bale is optional.
Yeah, definitely want to fight him. I hear good things. I did
Yeah, it's a
find the
good
one
fight.
guy who's like laying with a sprained ankle saying he sucks, but
Oh,
well,
yeah.
there's more to do, but you're getting close. You're far closer to the end than you were. You're closer to the end than you are to the beginning now. You're more than halfway. So.
yeah, turn the corner. Okay, cool.
Real quick, what I forgot to say about the GDQ thing wasn't just the DLC lockout. It was also that a guy did a boss rush playing a saxophone. That was the other part.
What on
find one for
earth
that.
is happening in what?
Yeah.
GDQ, man. It's
Oh,
just
I
like-
mean, there's the whole thing with Dark Souls players using the DK bongos.
Yeah.
Someone did it with banana peels, or I guess they were
Yeah.
bananas until he smashed them by playing the game, and then it was just electrodes hooked up to banana peels. But he beat it.
God, I don't understand. These are not human beings that are.
This is the kind of shit I love to hear about.
Fucking alien people. All right. Well,
All right,
good
on that
stream,
note-
Nate. You made a lot of progress today, actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good about it.
So,
All right, I might do some tinkering in the off hours just to see what else is going on here.
respect, man. Maybe next stream we'll get you those that kung fu build.
Yeah, maybe. All right, cool. Let me take a look around and see what I can come up with.
And internet. In the meantime, go out and throw Heart Machine some bucks, man. Pick up that.
It's good, y'all.
I'm sure
I suggested at least look at it.
Yeah,
enjoy
if
Hyper Light
nothing
Breaker.
else. Yeah.
Give it a shot.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess we'll call it here. Thank you all for joining us, either now or in the future. We appreciate you hanging out, and we will catch you. I think we'll get to Rao or whatever the fuck his name is. The other Ra. I don't know. Is it Rauh? I don't know. I haven't looked at the actual spelling, like in
Zelda character.
Sincerity, yeah. But anyway, I'll do some tinkering. We'll get back to this. We'll do this for a week from now, hopefully, and we'll see you there. Bye, everybody.
Later.
See ya.